organizations in the nonprofit sector who help to educate people about thoroughbreds or educate the thoroughbred industry about the newest advances in medicine and research. And so today we've got a fantastic panel of equestrians who are going to be teaching us both in the saddle and on the ground, and we also have some amazing horses they're going to be using. All the horses that we are using today are newly retired off-track thoroughbreds. They range in ages from 3 to 11, and this is definitely going to be the biggest thing that they've done so far in their off-track career. So before we get to meet our horses and get to evaluate them on first looks, I want to introduce all of our commentators and trainers. We're going to start with, let's start with our team on the ground. We've got Richard Lamb, who's walking up to me right now. We've got Dorothy Crowell. We have Michael Alloway, Aubrey Graham, and Robin Stang. And so I'd like to ask each of them to just introduce themselves a little bit and give us a bit of an overview about their experience with young horses and in the equestrian world. So Richard, are you willing to kick it off?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jen. My name is Richard Lamb, and I live in Aiken, South Carolina. And I've been doing this horse thing all my life. I was probably riding before I was born, literally, because my mother certainly could have been riding when she was pregnant. I grew up in New England, and I've been riding and teaching and training my entire life. My favorite are the thoroughbreds, but I like all young horses. One of my points is that I love all horses, is just some I like better than others. And so I'm here to watch this wonderful demonstration with some very good people with the young horses, and I'll add every little bit I can.
Thank you, Richard. And Dorothy, would you do us the honor of introducing yourself next?
Hi, Jen. I'm Dorothy Kroll. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky originally. Thoroughbreds have made it possible for me to live the life that I've always dreamed of, which is a life with horses. I was lucky enough to find 4 fabulous thoroughbreds that took me to the 5-star level of eventing. Malachi is the most famous, as he deserves to be. He took me to the Olympics a couple of times. I won a silver medal at the WEGs, and he also was and is the first 5-star U.S. champion at the Kentucky 3-day event. So I have taken thoroughbreds off the track for my entire career. I used to do what these brave people are doing now, and instead I get to stay on the other side of the mic, which I think is I'm kind of excited to do. So thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll get introduced to our riders who are going to put the first rides on these horses. Robin, would you be willing to introduce yourself as well as Krista?
Yeah, I'm Robin Stang. My background is Krista. She's going to be helping me. She's worked for me for 14 years, well, about 12 years, and she competed in reining cow horse, cutting, and so forth, helped break a lot of colts. Now she's been galloping horses and breathing horses on the track, so she deals with thoroughbreds all the time. Okay. My background is I've shown cutters and cow horses. I've had thoroughbred license, training license for 30 years. I was a farrier for 50 years. So I've been around a lot of thoroughbreds and dealt with a lot of them, and we break a lot of 2-year-old thoroughbreds also.
Fantastic, thank you. How about you, Aubrey?
All right, well, thank you guys for having me here and inviting me to this. This is fabulous. I'm Aubrey Graham. I run what is now a thoroughbred retraining center just south of south of Atlanta in McDonough, Georgia. So quick backstory, 2018 came to the Makeover kind of on a whim and realized I was doing a bunch of retraining at the time. I'm am an anthropologist, was a professor at the time, and was training full-time as a second job, and realized, over the years that an office kind of sucks and being outside and working with the horses is far better. So I ended up going out on the ledge and taking the jump to do this full-time, found a facility actually across the fence line in complete serendipity, and over the years have kind of become, as I was explaining earlier, the stop before the cowboy. So a lot of people send the hard horses or the thoroughbreds, and not all of them are hard. Most of them are just a lot of fun. So I've got a 16-stall barn down there and do a lot of retraining and some consignment, and otherwise ride as an eventer, but will train pretty much anything that comes into the farm. Though I can't ride Western, so I'm thrilled to see what you guys can do, because please don't put me in that saddle. But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward just to continuing to grow the business and keep working with the young horses.
Thank you. And last but not least, would you mind introducing yourself, Michael?
Sure. I'm Michael Alway. I live in Northern Virginia with my wife, Marion. We bought a farm about 2 years ago, about 20 minutes or so from Middleburg. It's in Millwood, but that's what everybody knows. My background was originally in natural horsemanship. Same with my wife. I spent a number of years with the Pirellis down in Florida as well as in Colorado. Rode Western in the beginning. Moved to Northern Virginia, or moved back to Northern Virginia, and quickly realized that there wasn't a lot of Western performance going on around my area. So I'd always been interested in eventing. So I slowly started to transition that way, and long story short, now I don't even own a Western saddle anymore, so I just ride English. I event. My wife is an upper-level dressage rider, as well as a natural horsemanship clinician. I've competed twice in the Extreme Mustang Makeover events, which was a great experience, and then I was introduced to the Thoroughbred Makeover in 2019. I've judged the freestyle a couple of times, so I'm really looking forward to this. At home, we pretty much will we're kind of the last stop as well for our area. So we pretty much will take anything. We've trained jumping horses, warm bloods, imports, trail horses, and also a ton of thoroughbreds. So either fresh off the track, or once they've started their career and somebody runs into an issue with the thoroughbred, oftentimes it comes back to a foundation training issue that we help get them back on track. So super excited to be here.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say and do with these horses. So now let's meet our horses. We are very lucky that we had our partners Second Stride and the Secretariat Center bring us 3 fantastic horses. And so these are both adoption organizations, and these horses are all up for adoption. Well, one of them already caught someone's eye, so it is pending adoption. The other 2 are up for adoption, and both organizations have a number of fantastic horses in their care. You can look both of the adoption organizations, Secretariat Center and Second Stride, up online, or if you are at the horse park this weekend, the Secretariat Center is located on the Kentucky Horse Park grounds, and you can make an appointment to go see their horses there. We're going to start with Rubus. Whoever is handling Rubus, can you raise your hand so we can focus on him? It's Julie. So Rubus is from Second Stride. He is a 6-year-old by Majestic Warrior, out of Country Diva, who is a mare by Song and a Prayer. Rubus was a winner of nearly $300,000. He won 4 times out of 27 starts, and his last race was on June 4th of this year at Churchill Downs. He retired with a minor suspensory injury, and that has since been rehabilitated and healed, and he's been started back under saddle. He's got a great personality and loves to be with people. He comes galloping to you from the field and follows you everywhere. He's playful and curious and loves to have fun. He cribs slightly, but it's 100% controlled with a strap. He stands well for the vet and farrier and is quiet while being groomed. He is located on Mosserwood Farm in Prospect, Kentucky. The next horse is Flashy Escort. That is our chestnut horse from the Secretariat Center with the 3 white socks over here. Flashy Escort is the youngest of the 3. That's a 3-year-old. And she is a 15 3-hand Sky Mesa filly. She is out of Star Escort, who is an N-Sweet mare. She did not race, and she is available for adoption for a fee of $3,500 from the Secretariat Center. She is also eligible for next year's Thoroughbred Makeover, as she has had less than 15 rides prior to December 1st of this year so far. So if she maintains her eligibility, we might see her next year. And I think it's kind of funny because the last time we did a Makeover Master Class in 2019, we had another horse from the Secretariat Center who is also a beautiful chestnut, and that one has been competing this week in dressage and doing very well. So there might be some good luck there too. Let's see, on to the third one. The third one is Something Awesome from Second Stride. The gentleman with the blue and white polo shirt and cowboy hat is walking him. Something Awesome is an 11-year-old gelding bred in Ontario. He's by Awesome Again, and he's out of Something About Laura. He was bred and owned by Adina Springs, and he was sent to Second Stride by Adina Springs. He last raced at Delaware Park on July 29th, 2019, and he's a multiple graded stakes winner of $1.3 million. He has 31 starts under his belt with 9 wins, 3 places, and 6 shows. And he was ranked 31st in North America by earnings in 2018. Awesome is a versatile horse, and he's been trained in Western and English riding. He enjoys his work and is agreeable to anything. He has a great personality and huge heart, and he's playful in the field and keeps the youngsters in check. So those are our 3 horses, and I think the first thing we're going to do is check in with the people who are going to be riding them to get their first impressions of what they're seeing, what they like, what these horses are telling them just in the short time they've gotten to see them. Any one of you is welcome to go first.
I go.
Could we just talk about, can we choose a horse at a time and kind of have everybody
Go
do it
for
so
it.
we're
Yeah.
going back and forth?
Yeah. Which one do you want to start with?
Why don't we go in order? I'll throw something out there on Rubus. What I like about him, I like his face. I like his look, I like his eye, I like how quiet he is. And he's coming in, this is a horse that I would, if one of my amateur riders was looking for something, this would definitely be a horse that, seeing his demeanor and seeing how quiet that eye is as he's walking around and his expression, this would be one I'd want to, ask more questions about, get more info, and, have them do a trial ride, because he really does look like, out of the bunch, the most quiet, easygoing one out here, and just in general, that's a really sweet eye on his face.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. It's a huge environment, so to me, coming in here with, the banners and the screen and such a new environment for these horses, seeing how well they handle this is obviously a really big insight into how they're going to handle stressful situations. And especially this guy, he's handling it like a pro, like he's been here before, so that's really awesome to see.
I like that gelding over there to see he's quiet. He's just good-minded. You could see that. He's probably going to be very willing to do things with. The chestnut mare being 3 years old, this is all new things to her. All this excitement. She hasn't been to a racetrack. She hasn't raced. I don't think she's been to the racetrack, but she hasn't been around all these horses have seen a lot of different things. They experience tractors and all the different equipment. So being a 3-year-old, yeah, she's going to be a little more looky. She's going to be worried about things, because it's a big deal. It's a big step up for her to get off the farm and see all these different things. The big gelding, he's raced a lot. He just came off the track not too long ago. I think he's handling it pretty well. He's a little sweaty between the legs because he's worried. He's probably saying the transition, am I at the racetrack or where am I at? So he's worried a little bit about that, but he's actually handling it very well, and he's nicely made horse. He's solid. He's big, solid horse. He looks like he could go any way, in any direction of discipline, because he is so big, solid.
Yeah, I would add in, looking at these horses, we have a little bit, I think, Something Awesome and Flashy Escort has had a little bit more time off of the track, and Rubus has not. So what we're looking at in terms of top line and what we're seeing in terms of their conformation and their back, his will change a bit. So as that horse transitions into a more general riding career, or whatever career he's going into, the muscle across the back and the wither and through his hind end is going to change a lot, and through his neck. So the smaller neck we're seeing now won't necessarily be the same, give it 3-6 months of proper muscling and work, coming back into work off track. And whereas the other ones we're seeing really, I mean, they have lovely top lines. They're very well put together. They've got great weight on them and just really solid muscling. Like, they look like they're good and ready to go for their second career.
I would agree. I mean, this one definitely, with that really nice outline and shape, looks like he could thrive in pretty much any discipline. Definitely looks to me a little bit more of an introvert, like he internalizes a little bit more. He's a little bit quieter. So as he builds confidence, that could be a really strong point for him. And then the young one looks like she's ready to go, which would also be a really good thing, right? Having a little bit more of an extroverted personality and a little bit more more willing to move her feet. So that's really nice too.
I think the chestnut mare, she's just being a 3-year-old and all this excitement. I think she just needs someone to really get her, work with her and get connected with her head, get into her brain and be connected as one. Is what she needs. Right now, she's like out there in the parking lot. She's not here with us. And I think once you get a connection with her, I think you're going to see a big difference when we start working these horses, that you're going to see a big difference when they're going to have more respect for us and trust us and get a little connection, that their whole personalities are going to change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the confidence. Once she has confidence, I mean, she's going to be absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
I could see that horse absolutely killing it in dressage or hunters. And this is where I'd love to know, from the Western side of things, where you see, so I always look on the English disciplines, but she's very pretty. She's got a very pretty head, nicely put together, even balance through shoulder to her hindquarter, and moves nice. So if they get the confidence up to get over, over the fences, and she has nice knees over the fences, she could very well go hunters.
I think the fact that she's putting her head down, stretching out a little bit more, it's such a departure from how she was when she came in here, really speaks to that point that I've heard you guys touch on in different ways about, just giving them a little bit of time. They just need to take it all in and come in from the parking lot mentally and into the arena with us. And it seems like she's just starting to relax a little bit more. So I think if you guys are ready, do you want to draw horses and see which one you're going to be working with? Let's turn this way, and if you guys want to each draw a name out of the hat. All right, let us know who you're working with.
Flashy Escort.
Flashy Escort, that would be the filly.
Sweet.
Something Awesome.
Something Awesome, our $1 million earner.
Rubus.
And Rubus. All right, well, if you guys want to partner up with your horses, and you're welcome to use the round pen, you're welcome to go ahead and tack them up right away, whatever you want to do with them. And I'm going to move over here with Richard and Dorothy and talk a little bit about these horses from their perspective. All right. Exciting to see who's going to get what. So, what were your first impressions of these horses?
Go ahead.
Hey,
My
I'm
first
Aubrey.
impression was all three
Nice
of them
to
are
meet you.
handling
What's your name?
this situation very well. I kind of have fallen in love with the 11-year-old who won $1 million. He's a lovely shape of horse. He looks powerful. He's obviously an athlete. He obviously has a brain. I also can see the potential in Rubus, and obviously having been on the board of the Secretariat Center, I'm going to be partial to the chestnut mare as well. So that's my impression so far.
That's
and I'm excited
right.
to
So
see how it goes.
you were the president of the board of the Secretariat Center, so you know the challenges in aftercare, and all three of these horses come from aftercare organizations. Can you tell us a little bit about what an organization like the Secretariat Center or Second Stride or New Vocations or all of these organizations, kind of the overview of what they do for these potential adopters when they get the horses in?
Well, for sure, we're all in the same boat. I mean, we're all trying for the same thing. We're not competitors. We're all in it for the horse. We're trying to help transition these horses from a life on the track to their second career. And the challenges are definitely being able to match the right person with the right horse. They often come off the track with their own PTSD, a little bit of baggage. Sometimes they are just kids, and it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered if they were in the field or on the track. They're still just kids. And so finding the right adopter and matching them is really key, I believe, to a successful partnership. And I think that that is probably some of the biggest issues that most of these programs have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always so interesting to kind of hear the rundown of when you get a horse that's coming from one of these aftercare programs. They've gone through their vettings, they've gone through evaluations for temperament and physical evaluations, and they've had several of the equestrians at the facility work with them. And so equestrians talk a different language sometimes than the people at the racetrack do. And so I always think that's such an advantage of these organizations or even private resellers, that they can communicate what that horse is like in equestrian terms, more than just the hard and fast, which I think is really important, especially if someone's looking for their long-term partner in equestrian sports or just recreational riding.
I think Richard will agree with me, and one of the biggest fallacies is that we're rescuing the horses, that they have these horrible careers on the track and we're rescuing them. That is not true. So often these horses come with a dowry from their owners on the track, or the trainers are the one that reach out to us and say, I've got one you all need to come look at. So they are partners in trying, these horses are their livelihood, they appreciate them, they love them, and they are our partners in finding them their second careers.
I think that's evident in how many of the Makeover horses racing connections that we're seeing here at the Makeover. There's so many previous owners and trainers who knew these horses at the track. We even had one guy come out who wanted to see the horse that he won the biggest bet of his life on. He won $6,200. It basically paid for his first year in college, and he came to the Makeover to watch that horse compete and see him in person. So yeah, there's a lot of their track connections that really get engaged in the off-track side more and more as the years go on. So how about you, Richard? What are your first impressions of these horses and kind of the first steps that these three trainers are taking with them?
Well, an easy way or a simple way that I always think about, especially the race horses when they come off the track, is the term I use is they're very experienced, but they have no training or schooling. And what I mean by that is they're very experienced on what they know because they've been exposed to so many things on the track. And yet, at the same time, they're coming to a brand new situation when they come off the track. And it's interesting because the older horse out here today that Aubrey has at the moment seemed to be more settled, and yet he was sweating a little bit. Could be because it is a little humid, but also he looks pretty chill. He tends to be a little bit more of a stoic horse. You don't always necessarily know what his emotions are at the moment. Where the chestnut mare, because she's 3 and hasn't had all of that experience that the others have, she was a little more, let's say, reactive. Not in a negative sense, but just more aware and trying to figure it out. So what I'm seeing, and then the other horse, who actually looked like a young horse, but he is still in a level of recovery and rehab from a slight injury when he came off the track. So, like I think Aubrey mentioned before, he's a horse who looks younger, but he's actually a 6-year-old, I believe, and he doesn't have the muscle. He's lost the muscle in that. So what's interesting is that all of these people who are handling their horses, they're all trying slightly different ways, but they're all trying to get the horse's attention. They're trying to figure out what is the reaction to the horse when they give them new information, and then they're trying to get them to tune in, so to speak, to them as the person at the end of the rope or on the end of the reins. And so they're getting them to come to them, move away, find out what their first reaction is, And I think that's what's most important, is when you start with any horse, whether it's a 2-year-old that's that's a warm blood or never been started, that's what it's about, is getting them to tune into you. Aubrey over there is using some physical connections, and the horse turned around to see what was doing. Krista is using her flag, but she's trying to get a reaction from the horse, so that, and he's tending to tune out, so she's trying to get him to pay attention, to tune into what she wants. And Michael over there is doing the same sort of thing. It's just the filly is not sure what he's doing, and you can keep seeing that she looks away. Like right now, she just looked towards the Jumbotron. You all can't see it on the live stream. So, like it was pointed out earlier, she's not truly engaged in the arena yet. But that's what Michael is trying to do, is to get her to come and make her world smaller, so that he's in charge of that at the moment.
I think that in a lot of cases, horses come off the track. They have a very limited vocabulary. They don't really know what a leg is, because they've probably never felt one. If you've seen jockeys, their stirrups are quite short. Their saddles are quite light. They're going to be putting saddles on these horses that they possibly have never felt before. The saddle alone could startle them, because it's going to be heavier. The rider, though these 3 riders are all quite light, is going to be bigger. The balance is going to be different. And the forms of communication, the vocabulary available to the riders is limited. So I think what they're trying to do now is to establish a few more words in their vocabulary. They're trying to establish, as Richard said, this is me, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to do when I want you to move away from me, this is what I want you to do, this is what I'm going to do with my body when I want you to stop or go or turn. Because right now most of these horses know how to go left, and they know how to go left fast, and that's kind of it.
I think it's really interesting to look at the body language of all 3 of the people who are working with the horses. Even though they're doing different things with all 3 of the horses, their body language is really similar. They're trying to kind of turn the horses' brains on a little bit and then bring them back to that calm place. We just saw Michael doing that a couple times, getting his filly to turn one way, take a few steps one way, then another way. She gets very reactive, and then he turns it off and has this quiet moment with her and lets her come back to home base and start seeing him as home base. Whereas Aubrey is kind of working on a little bit of flexibility, engaging her horse this way with the neck and side to side, which, you know, basically that can test out the steering from the ground. It can also test out the horse's flexibility, and also just how defensive that horse might be. Let's check in with Robin. Robin, are you willing to give us kind of your first impressions after you guys did some groundwork, now that you're tacking him up?
And I just want him to get to the point. Oh, hello. We're on mic.
Am I on here? Okay. Yeah, this horse, he's just a little sulky, I think. Like when she went to lunge him a little bit, and as he moved, was just a little sulky. We haven't done a lot of bending with him. We want to see how he would react. Reactions, working the flag, see what his response would be with that flag. You know, the noise, and he didn't care. He's pretty laid back, pretty chilled out, very, very chilled. He didn't have a lot of forward right there, so now we're going to work on some bending and see how flexible he is, and before she was trying to move his hip and trying to start moving the body parts, you know, to get to where you can move the hip, and now we're trying to bend the pole and get him to flex around your leg, and so we can start, you know, like moving the shoulder and start where we can get him to move, because like I say, he was just a little sulky, just very quiet, you know what I'm saying, which is a good thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Aubrey, are you willing to give us some of your first impressions as you're working with your big guy?
Sure. So basically, as I was telling everybody here, a little bit of what didn't get said when we talked about conformation before, just of how nicely put together this horse is. He's quite impressive. He does really look like $1 million horse, and it's nice to know that in fact that he was. Sometimes those stake horses really look like stake horses. He's got a very powerful hind end, he's very symmetrical, a nice deep shoulder, and a very intelligent eye. I mean, he is quite quiet. There's a lot of things clicking in his brain right now, but what's coming out is pretty minimal. So it'll be fun to get in his head and see where he is. And I'm going to believe everybody that he is actually quite playful. He looks like he's very, very intelligent, which is fun because they can cause good trouble and be super under saddle. This is a horse that I would love to run cross country on. He would just be a ton of fun. So one of the first things I did was run my hands down his legs, and he does have an old cold set bow on the left, and that doesn't scare me off. My barn is the land of misfit toys and scratch and dent, so we see a lot of these things. And that doesn't mean that he can't jump or he can't do the things, but that is something that I would want to check out and see what it is and get a history on it. But he seems perfectly sound on it, and it's cold and set, so no issue. No issue per my thoughts on that. And again, I'm watching, he is cocking his inside hind leg, which doesn't, again, tell me anything about soundness, but does tell me how he weights and his musculature and his balance. So I do figure that we might have, because he's not standing perfectly square when he is together and just resting, that we're going to have one side that's a little stronger than the other. And again, that's all something that can be amended through training and just paying attention to. So now the fact he's cocking the hind right makes me happy because now we're actually even in terms of what we're weighting. So I just pay attention to those things, and then I'm walking him through trying to get him, to pay attention to me, and teach him, yes, good boy, and then teach him a little bit more of the new vocabulary of move forward, stop, back, let me come to the other side, and just make sure that we're basically speaking the same language. So this is just preliminary. If I want him to move forward, I want him to understand that the whip up here is not a bad thing, and that it does just mean, hey, we're just going to walk until I move it, and then woo. Good, so I'll teach a vocal cue and the whip at the same time, and then in front of the legs, just here, I'll just back, and then he's paying attention to my body language and the crop. Good boy. And then I work from the shoulders, again, just to get confidence. This is where you're going to be working somewhat when you're on him. And if he moves, I'll just stay at his shoulder. Him here. And then I want him to reach his nose around as much for a submission as it is to understand his flexibility and where his body's at. Good boy. And so as soon as he gets to my hip, he gets rewarded. And I'll do everything evenly on both sides. And usually these horses are better on the left because they're used to people being there. So the right can be really tricky. It's almost like dealing with a different horse sometimes. And the first time I tried to pass in front of him, he was like, cool, I walk forward and walk over you. You're done. Like, you're out of my view. You're not on my left anymore. So that's always a fun thing to train, is to make sure that you can pass quietly in front of the horse and they'll still stand and be respectful, which he very much is. And then you work the same thing from the right. Come here. And you just want him to get there. And this is a very smart horse. That took no time for him to figure that out, that's what I'm asking. And then what I ask from there is for him to be able to step over with the front, and sometimes this takes a second to train, but I want him to understand moving off of pressure, not into pressure. And so it'll translate really well to your leg once you get on. Stand. And some horses you don't need to do this, some of them already know. A lot of horses are coming to the track with a variety of different levels of training. I love seeing the horses that Jen trains and works with, because they come to the track with beautiful changes, having worked in indoors, extremely classy horses, and then you have some and a couple that have come through my barn where I'm like, wow, they just threw a jockey on it and told it to run. So you have the full range, and this helps you establish kind of what type of horse you're working with. So, and if he wants to move, I'm going to let him move and not restrict him, but I'm also going to insist that I stay at the shoulder. Good, come here. And over. Over. Good. And we'll just keep asking until he gets it, and then he gets rewarded. And he wants to plant the shoulder next to me. Over. You got to move that foot. So he still wants to move into pressure. Yes, good boy. So right there, that's what we wanted. And then he gets the release, which is you stop asking, and you just tell him he's a good boy. Can we do it again? Hello. Pay attention. Yes, you saw outside. Very good. Here. And I'll just tap a little bit with the whip. It's right there. It's not hard pressure. Very good. And it's just one crossover.
So Aubrey, what you are looking for is for him to actually take a sideways step with that outside. Right, okay.
That is correct. I want his left front to come in front of his right front. and then for him just to relax. And it's literally just a quick move away from pressure. I don't want him to run. I don't want him to get worked up about it. Just a single step where he softens and gives. Come here. And usually I'll ask for the nose first. Hi, you're a good boy. Over.
And
he's
this is
starting to-
something your average racehorse knows absolutely nothing about.
Exactly. So this is teaching a whole new vocabulary. Come here. But it's a pretty simple one. There, almost. So I don't want him running around me. I want him to just take one step, and he's thinking. All of these, everything he's offering is good. There's nothing wrong with what he's doing. It's just not what I'm asking for. So I let him work through it until we get the right answer without getting him worked up. Over. Over.
So he is communicating with you,
Yes.
which is your
Good
main
boy.
goal, but now you're trying to teach him something.
Yes. And that will translate to then, we'll move from the shoulder to his ribs in terms of pressure to get him to move over. And this just helps. It sets them up for bending, sets them up for being able to move off your leg when you get on. And I found it extremely helpful for being able to move the shoulders and being able to keep control, therefore not having to work with the head. You just work with the shoulders and the hind end, and they're much more rideable. Hi.
And it also sets him up to understand that when he doesn't understand you, it's okay.
Yeah.
He can just start trying different things until he finds the one you like, and it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and that absolutely. And so by not getting upset when he offers the wrong answer, it's not, it's still an answer, and that's the thing. He's not shutting down on me. He's not protesting. He's just trying to figure it out. And again, this one's very smart, and he's absolutely switched on and trying to figure out what I'm asking and being super, super good. I quite like this horse.
So with this apparently simple exercise, you're establishing trust with this horse you've just met.
That's accurate. Hi, and very good. And he'll do funny things. I mean, the fact that he's turning his head over and like putting it on my hip, that's okay. He's doing what's asked. He's got to bring his head around and get close to me. Come here. And the fact that he wants to do it that way, I don't care. You're a good boy. Hi. Over. Over. Over.
And so at this point, you're watching Aubrey on the screen, and I assume it's on the live stream as well. But what the other two are working that you can't see, but it's still the same idea. They're putting pressure on, and then they take the pressure off to see what the response is, but also all of them are giving the horses time and space to learn something, to give a reaction. So I always think of that as riding or working a horse with intention instead of judgment, so that I try not to be in a hurry. It's not an emotional process. All three handlers here, so far they're not riders, their body language is asking, but not in a hurry. And now we just saw Michael ask, put pressure on, and now he's waiting to see what her response is. And he is in neutral. And he has allowed her to start to process this and giving her that time and space to do so.
Very good.
Can you tell us, Michael, a little bit about what your experience with her has been so far and what you're doing right now with her?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So far, she strikes me as a fairly, it might sound a bit odd, but like a fairly self-confident horse, like considering the environment. And I think where this horse specifically, where I'm working with her, is getting her to give me the leadership to help her be more confident in this environment. So I think like if up to her, she would probably go around here for a couple hours, saying no, I don't really want to go over there, and no, don't touch me there, because I'm going to kind of manage myself through time and space, which makes sense. She connects really well. Earlier, I was hanging out with her, and I found an itchy spot on her withers, and like considering this kind of environment, like that she would come around and groom me and like kind of nuzzle me back and stuff like that, I think is pretty good. When I think about getting to the point where I want this horse to act like a partner, taking that leadership and having her like view me as a leader, in a natural herd dynamic, it would be, my personal space moves your personal space, right? If I were the dominant horse and I were to come in here and say, hey, I want to bite that, I want to eat that hay behind you or that grass, that if I come in here and put a little bit of intention in my body language, that she responds appropriately to that and yields away from that. And then if I go to neutral, that she realizes that I'm not asking a question. And one of the things that I can do to help her with that is to move her feet a little bit. I was working on some hindquarter yields, moving the shoulders a little bit, moving the hindquarters on the other side, and just getting her to turn loose and just to soften mentally to me. And then maybe be able to then step in here and go, hey, don't run into me. I need you to back a couple of steps and go, oh, good girl. And that puts her focus and attention into, okay, I need to follow Michael and see where is it that I need to yield, right? Like I can look at, balancing the left and right side. I have, nose, neck, shoulder, rib cage, hindquarters on both sides, and also front to back. The other big thing that I'm feeling with her, which is more just an education piece that I'm working on, is that I don't want her to feel like everything that I put out toward her is pressure. I want her to understand the difference between asking pressure and boundary pressure. And that's a big one for me. Earlier when I was, it kind of looked like I was like sending her side to side with the shoulders. And basically what I look for is to go, okay, this stick is an extension of my body. This is asking pressure. Hey, could you move your shoulders over and go to the left? This now is a boundary. Don't run into my stick, right? Or don't keep going. But I didn't ask. I didn't put any pressure on. This is a boundary over here. And as she starts to get smarter about it, in the beginning, what would happen is she'd run into that boundary, and then she perceived it as pressure. So for her, that was like, why are you yelling at me? So as I started to work with her here, and I go, I'm only going to ask you a few very, very simple things, very, very basic, and it's going to be easy, and yes, you can do it, but you have to watch out because I'm going to kind of manage you through time and space and just watch the boundaries. And that really helps her to connect, because that's to me more of making a game out of it, to where she goes, okay, I better keep up with this guy, and then every time that I would go back and maybe ask her to actually give me a yield, I could give her something to reward her on and get her to connect that way as well. So that's my main kind of thought process at the moment, getting her to understand the difference between not everything I do is pressure. Sometimes it's just, nope, don't go over there, don't go over there, and to help her to think a little bit more about the leadership that I'm offering her.
And do you find that with the horses that come into you that maybe have already come off the track with their new owners and they come to you because they have a problem, it's usually the result of them thinking that they're supposed to get on them immediately and ride them and make them go round and make them jump within a month, et cetera, without doing the groundwork first?
For sure.
And establishing the line of communication and trust.
Absolutely. Because a big part of it is the horse understanding, I think for me, horsemanship is, this communication between horse and human, and a big part of that is me as the human learning to speak horse. But the other half of that is the horse learning to speak human. And I feel like if we don't go through on the ground and teach them, what means something, what doesn't mean something, like the flag earlier and me with the stick, that doesn't mean anything. This is just friendly, right? And then what does mean something? Is it a boundary? Is it pressure? Is it rhythmic pressure? Is it steady pressure? How much? Is it the appropriate response to pressure? And when horses start to click into that and go, oh, I understand this, to me, that's a really big, aha moment for a lot of horses, especially the Mustangs that I trained back when we were doing that. And any time you get a horse that has, I would say, a hole in the foundation, rather you're just going, hey, blank canvas, let's build it up from there, or it could even just be, oh, that whole time I thought that meant pressure. I thought you were yelling at me. I go, no. Let me help you understand it. And that really helps the horse to just find that really confident, grounded place. So for sure, before I get on their back, I like to make sure that, where the ABCs and the English, the language is working out and we are understanding the concepts. It doesn't mean the horse doesn't make mistakes or they go, oh, I thought you meant such and such, and I can help them. But that helps to avoid I'd say the big overreactions that oftentimes you see.
And do you find when you're training these horses and you've progressed to getting on their back and working with them, when they hit a wall, mentally, like a learning curve. They hit that wall. Sometimes you get back off and go back to this to remind them what the basics are and get them comfortable.
Absolutely, and oftentimes that even happens, that for sure happens, and oftentimes that happens even just before the session, right? Like depending on which horse shows up that day, you pull them out of the paddock or the stall, and you go, is it 98 degrees and 100% humidity? And the horse is like, yeah, whatever. Or is it a little, chilly and windy and the horse has a bit more life? Looking at the horse, are they extroverted by nature? Are they introverted? Do they need to move their feet a little bit before I get on them, or are they ready to go? Or do I need to just simply go, hey, I would like you to be mentally connected with me, and go, okay, are you, like with this horse now, not to say that she doesn't get distracted, but like I would say, without asking her anything, depending on where I'm going here, like she's pretty mentally connected. And sometimes with a horse, that takes 30 seconds from the time I put him, take him from the stall to the cross ties. Sometimes that takes 30 minutes. It just depends. But as they start to learn that game, and I just start to feel like, okay, this horse is getting more on my team, so that then I don't have to put so much pressure on to get her to do what I want, because I just have to explain it to her, if that answers your question. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
And so Dorothy and Richard, you guys have dealt with hundreds, if not more, off-track thoroughbreds, young horses. How does this compare to your approach when you have a horse come in and you have those first few sessions with the horse where you're learning them, they're learning you?
For me, it is all three of these riders or handlers are doing the same thing. They're doing it in different ways, which hopefully will prove to anybody watching us here today that there isn't necessarily one right way. The main thing is to establish the trust and the vocabulary and the lines of communication with the horse from the ground before you get on their back. Because if you do that, then once you get on their back, life is a lot easier and safer for both of you.
Yes, I would agree that they're all taking the same approach in a slightly different way. I read something the other day that I really liked, so I instantly stole it, and I apologize whoever said it, and I'm probably not saying it the same way, but trust happens when you turn fear or anxiety or some emotional state that you don't want into curiosity, because horses are basically curious. It's really interesting. I've sometimes can't, if I go out in the field and I can't catch a horse, what I'll do is I'll sit down in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden the horses don't know who or what I am, because I could be a prey or an animal, or it could be who knows what. But as soon as I stand up again, they know I'm a person. You can also turn it around the other way. When you see someone crouching down, or a workman, or doing something at the barn, they might spook because they don't know what it is, and I'll just say to the person, can you please stand up? Then you can get back down. And all it is us understanding that when a horse reacts to something, that does not mean that they're wrong and we're right, or that they've done something wrong. That it's just a matter of helping them to understand. Because when horses see something, if you wait, normally they want to go up and inspect it and see what it is. And we are the ones that get impatient.
On the topic of what we're dealing with today, thoroughbreds they're pretty recently retired from racing. So when either of you get horses into your barn that have come from the track, they've just retired, what is your approach? And if the answer is it depends on the horse, then just explain why maybe. But do you start them and work right away? If they retire sound, let's say they're like this filly, sound but slow, do you get them into transition right away? Do you give them letdown time? Do you do something different? What's that approach for you guys?
Most of the time I give them letdown time, but sometimes you get them off the track from an environment where they've been really well taken care of They're in a really good mind space. They're bored. They get bored really quickly. And those horses, sometimes I will just put them right into work, but the work I put them into is what you see happening here today. So it's not anything like what they've been doing, right? It's just communication with a human every day, and then I turn them back out until they're ready for a saddle and ready for me to get on them.
Yes, I would agree. It really does depend on the horse. What I find interesting is that some horses, and it seems to be the horses that have been on the track longer, is that they are so used to being handled and being in a program when you just turn them out, and as far as they're thinking or feeling, almost abandoned, and it's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with myself because I have always been in a program or handled, or there's been a groom. Some of the horses don't know how to be turned out. They've been on the racetrack all the time and they haven't had much downtime. So every horse is so different. And so some of those horses, maybe they do go into work. And as Dorothy said, there's work and there's work. So it's not physically hard necessarily, but it's to keep their attention and to give them something so that they are being handled every day. The other thing is, depending on the horse, sometimes little and often is the key, and so you might end up working with a horse for 20 minutes and put them back in the stall and give them a couple hours and then bring them back out for another 20 minutes. Or you may have to work through something and then you give them a couple of days off. Something that I've discovered with all young horses, that for whatever reason, if I work a horse for a week or two with fairly intense new information that I'm giving them, and for some reason I'm away, or they, for whatever reason, they're missing, lose a shoe and they don't get shod for a few days, or I don't handle them for a week or something like that, what I find quite often is when I come back, it's like someone else has still been training them. And it just goes to show that every horse learns in a different way, and it takes time for them to integrate the new information. I always think of it like sometimes you have to, just like a computer, when you get a new upgrade or a new download, whatever you're doing to it, sometimes you just have to turn it off and reboot. And horses are the same way, just they need the downtime.
A lot of things with horses can't be related to people, but I think that's one thing that can. I mean, I can remember being in high school and cramming for tests and trying so hard to absorb as much information as I could, but then it was, if I stepped away from it and looked at the information with fresh eyes, I was reminded of everything that I'd read the night before and just had so much more of an appreciation and understanding without as much of the pressure. And I think that can really be applied to what these horses are doing as well. I see Michael is just taking a little break with his, but the other two have kind of increased their activity level with their horses on the ground. So let's check in with Aubrey if we can. And Aubrey, can you tell us a little bit? I saw you were lunging a minute ago, and he's looking just kind of confident and looking to you for direction, which is always a good sign.
So yeah, he's actually doing great. One of the nice things about starting from moving their shoulder and getting them to reach around is that I start to understand and teach the move away from me cue. So lunging for some of these horses comes really natural. A lot of them have been trained in that before they go to the track. Some of them still have the skill many years later, some of them forget. So he may have been trained to lunge, he may not have, but he really is not a huge fan of moving away from pressure. He wants, like many track horses, to be right next to you. He's very comfortable with his nose on you or someone at his head. And for most race horses, that's how they live their life. They have a groom at their head and a human at their head the whole time. So moving to his shoulder is an interesting spot for him. He's like, okay, I can handle this, especially on the left. But trying to get him to move away from me on the lunge has been a nice process, and it's one that I do with many of these horses where you go, okay, let's see what you have, and he went, well, I don't understand. And he said, okay, so then let's make it real simple, and we're just going to walk you as if you're lunging, give you a little bit of a forward cue, the whip is up, so we already trained whip up is move, and then I just walk with him in the circle with a bit of a lead so he understands, and again, this is kind of the training wheels of all of this. You don't just throw him out in a huge circle and make him run. The point of lunging here and going around and away from me is to move away from pressure, to train some voice cues, so walk, trot, and canter, which we're not going to train all of that today, but over time, that's what I would do. And to get him to understand and have a bit of spatial respect. So he keeps dropping his shoulder to me a little bit, which is him saying, no, I don't like your idea right now. I'm going to push you out of your circle and be just a little bit dominant. And again, a dominant horse is not a bad thing. It's actually a very confident horse usually, though it can come with its insecurities. Hi, kiddo. So then we just train how to do the lunging that I'm asking, even if it's different than the lunging he has learned. And this one's, he's wicked smart. I mean, he's already figured out over the past 5-6 minutes that what I do want is forward, and if I walk at his shoulder, move. I want him to move away, and that's where that other cue and that other training that I did before I did this comes in handy. Pressure to the shoulder is away, not into, and then when he starts to curve like that, I'll get a little behind him and just give him forward pressure here, and keep walking with him. So I'm moving, looking in his eye, keeping him moving forward. And if he wants to go forward, that is always the right answer, so long as he's controlled. I didn't ask him to trot, but if that's where he wants to be to move forward, we go with it. And again, keeping soft pressure so he's not getting corrected for his efforts, because they're not incorrect. Forward is always good.
I think that's a really good point and phrase you just threw out. Forward is always good.
And a lot of times they do, I have to tell my students this a lot, I'm like, they do have to go faster sometimes than you think for them to settle, and trying to hold them in doesn't always work in your favor. In fact, it usually doesn't. So letting him go forward right now, he will settle and he will walk. And he's starting to pay attention to my body language. He's also still paying attention to the parking lot. So we are at this end of the ring. And so just staying quiet and staying with him, and kind of keeping his attention. One thing I heard from one of my friends a while ago while she was training a student was really fun, is she yelled at her student, you have to be more interesting. So you, the rider, in some ways have to be more interesting than the horse, and what they are seeing, what the horse is seeing elsewhere. Hi. So what he did here is, it's good. He's like, I'm ready to stop, so I'm going to pay attention to you and keep your boundary, but he also turned into me. And I really want horses to learn to stop with their shoulder to me. So this is something that I would just correct here. Just gently leave him there and then stand at his shoulder. And this is his less comfortable spot. He's like, we're out. Nope, you're still with me. And they're not always a fan of you being right here. This is for a prey animal, this is a very insecure space. They would much rather have you in front of them. So again, I'm just gonna stay here until he settles, and then we'll ask him to walk again on the lunge until he stops and stands quietly to the side. There we go. Walk. You're a good boy.
Aubrey, do you find that this is your beginning of teaching him to stay in front of your leg?
Yes. Very much so. And it helps make a horse understand even cues on both sides. So what I do to the left, I would do to the right, and then when I do this the next day or 2 days later, the next time we put him on a lunge, we start the other direction. Because inevitably as people, even if you set a timer, you're going to do more and train more intensely the first way you go. And so if you always start left, you build a left-sided horse. So I like to flip-flop and make sure that you start left, then you start right. Come on, good boy. Uh-huh.
That's a really good tip, Aubrey, about making an ambidextrous horse, more or less. You want a balanced horse, so never do the same thing on the same side in the same order every day.
Yeah, and he's doing a lot of licking and chewing. There's some blinking. So he is really starting to think about this, and that's what, even if we don't get it perfect on day one, which a lot of them don't, and that doesn't matter, he is learning and thinking, and that's really the best thing, is his brain's engaged, and he's staying this quiet. So I really like how this horse is handling all of this. And then, whoa.
And one of the points that you made,
Good.
Aubrey, earlier was about some of the time faster is what you have to accept at times. Mm-hmm. But that's also specifically one thing that I find so much with the thoroughbreds, is that is what they were trained to do, was to be faster. Mm-hmm. And so when you get people who are just starting out with a racehorse, or they don't understand that themselves, when the horse starts to go faster, which is their comfort zone, it's not the rider's or the handler's comfort zone.
Right.
And that's when you can run into some of the struggles that we've all had with horses.
Good boy.
And so that's why racehorses, a lot of times, when you let go, are when they tend to go slower. And when you pull, or take more hold that's what
Good.
gets them to go faster. So
Yeah, and the tighter you get, the faster they go. So
correct. And
Good.
so the more you pull, the faster they
Good.
go. And
Good.
where with other young horses, and obviously what she's dealing now is part of his discomfort with her
Good.
on his right side.
Yep.
And so that's why she's...
And he's like, we're going to find our way out of the gate. Nope.
Right. But
We're
she's
gonna keep
also
dancing this way.
using the wall as a little bit of a squeeze there to keep him going forward.
I
We're gonna
really
move
like,
away.
too, with Aubrey, how there might be one thing he's doing that she's not asking that would be incorrect, but there are a lot of other things that she's asking that are
Good.
correct. And so she's making sure she's rewarding and focusing on the positive instead of only hammering when he swings that
Good.
butt out. Because in that circle, 9/10 of it was
Hi.
exactly what she was asking. And so it's good to
Welcome.
praise them for the right, so they then start wanting to do more of that.
Good boy.
And Aubrey, do you find that what he's trying really hard to tell you right now is that he would rather you be on the other side?
100%.
And I
Over.
find that many of these horses come off the track. It isn't that they are left-handed or left-hooved. It's that they
Good,
don't
let's walk.
understand how to go right because they just don't do it very
On
often.
the right. Come on.
So many of them, they come off better on the left, and then once you start working with them, you find out they're actually right-hooked or right-handed in the end. They start becoming better on the right.
Very good. And whoa.
And actually, I recommend to people when they're starting even with foals to work them, lead them, do everything equally or maybe more on the right side so that they get used to you and having people on both sides. Because almost everything, for various reasons, we do on their left side, and that's what Aubrey's having to deal with now. And he's 11 years old, so he's been practicing having someone on his left side for many years. But the young horses, when you start them,
Good.
whether it's riders or people, the thing we learn first a lot of times
Very
is the
good
thing we
boy.
learn best. So therefore, if you keep the horse ambidextrous
Good.
from the start, it can make your
Good.
life and everybody else's easier further down the road.
There. Good boy.
And I think on that point of making a horse ambidextrous, we're seeing
boy.
Krista over here under Robin's tutelage. She just got on the horse from the left side, the traditional side, and he was great for that. He was perfect. Now she just got on the horse from the opposite side, which he's probably never had done before, and he was equally perfect. He was kind of like, okay, what's next? Robin, can you tell me a little bit about the theory behind that and what you guys have been working on the last 10 minutes or so?
Well, most of these horses are handled off the left side all the time. And, first she mounted him from the left side and bounced on him to see we're just testing to see what his reactions would be. And she'll get on and off from left side and right side. And of course, on the right side, they're not handled as much. They've never been mounted from the right side ever. So she just jump it up and down, see what his reaction would be, see if, like I say, he's kind of a very laid-back horse anyways. He's not very forward. She just seeing what he's going to do, how he's going to react, and he's pretty, but that's the theory, is just jumping from both sides. Because if you were riding that horse, a lot of horses, when an object flies on the far side, the right side, or something hangs off the right side, they will react more than the left side. That's because they never get that balanced experience from the right side. So, we like to do things on both sides. If we do it on the left, we want to do it on the right.
And do you find the simple fact of putting a foot in the stirrup and mounting the horse is sometimes an issue because they're used to getting the jockeys tossed up?
Oh, yes, because your toe hits the side of the horse, they're going to react right. And a lot of the horses, when the jockeys, some stand there, some don't even stand there. They walk off. So that's what she was doing. If you notice, when she got on him, she had his head bent. She didn't want him to walk off. Okay, for his future, he needs to stand there. She needs to have his head bent, make him stand here, make him wait. So if someone's get on with a mounting block, he's not walking off. He learned not to move his feet, that he has to stay there. And just like right now, she just wants him to get, right now, what she's doing is just working more of that bend. Him giving in the face, just giving where he's giving in the face. Like say, he's a pretty laid back horse, very, very. Yeah, he's very laid back. He's just, and she'll just give him the bend, using her inside leg, getting it kind of move around, move a hip, and she'll try to bring that shoulder through a little bit. Where he comes through, he's kind of stuck, he doesn't understand. Right there, he kind of took a step with that front shoulder and stepped in. He kind of stepped across a little bit inside. So she's just trying to move his body, trying to get before she goes into a trot to see how he's going to react and where he's stiff.
Yeah, I feel like it cannot be understated how much of an atmosphere we have here for these horses and how impressive it is that they are working this calmly with these 3 individuals. And it's a testament to how good these handlers are. But between the Jumbotron here in the arena, all of the vendors, all the people milling around, as we've seen with some of our competitors, these banners on the arena can sometimes be a bit off-putting to some of the horses. They don't appreciate our sponsors as much as we do, apparently. Let's check in with Michael a little bit. He's been working his horse a little bit more forward on the ground, and you've got her tacked up now. How's she doing?
She's doing great. You know, to me, this was when I tacked her up, she was feeling really good before I tacked her up. When I started tacking her up, I always just break it down for the horse and go, okay, just going to put the pad on and off both sides, make sure that she's comfortable with that. She was okay with the pad, and then as I went on and started putting the saddle on, she had some anxiety about the saddle being placed on her back. So again, like the more steps that I can break things down into, there's placement of the saddle on and off, equally on both sides. To me, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to completely, enjoy it the first session, but I always want to take some time and just recognize and go, okay, she was uncomfortable. She displayed a little bit of like a displaced behavior, a little anxiety. So I just worked on that a bit until I felt like I could, put the saddle on by myself without anybody holding the horse, which to me then, all that indicates to me is that, okay, she's accepting of it enough that I don't feel like I have to put her in a box to get it done. That's just my style, my approach. And then from there, then it's accepting the girth, right, and the pressure of the girth, walk, trot, canter. She just was going around a bit, and she's like, it's a different saddle. She's never had this saddle on before. The stirrups flop around a little bit, plus the environment, plus everything else. And I think, that's, she expresses herself when she feels the discomfort of it. So she's, bucking around a little bit, kicking out some. But I just allow her to encourage her to go forward, kind of as similar as what we talked about before, that the answer is in the forward, and to encourage her to find comfort in the forward. Like horses, I think, always seek comfort and seek relief. Like I think they're programmed that way. Like we don't go out to a field and look around and go, man, look at all these nutty, stressed out horses, right? Like in a natural, like relaxed, positive environment. So they're always seeking comfort. If it's sunny, they go under a tree. And it's the same in the training. And when they aren't comfortable, then for me, I just go through, and oftentimes it's just, on the lunge here, for example, hey, like, can you find comfort in the forward, right? Rather she's going, oh man, this girth bothers me, and I've never had one of these types of girths or whatever, and I don't like it. I can say, well, the answer is not to stop and suck back, it's go forward until she goes, okay, actually I can work with this and it's not too bad. And oh, look, when I go forward calmly and quietly, then Michael rewards me, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not really trying to do a whole lot more than just setting her up to find comfort on her own, right, through the forward is kind of the overall strategy.
And do you, in general, leave the stirrups down on purpose?
So typically, with a young horse, I like to make sure that I can have them go up or down. There are horses that I know are just too sensitive for that, and I'll put them up, I'll tie them. But I always like to get to the place where I could have them go walk, trot, canter with the stirrups down. For me, that's just another thing, like with the Western saddle, that's more my background initially when I started out. Like that was normal. Saddle strings, long stirrups, and everything just kind of flapping around. And I think protecting the horse from that at times is a disadvantage, because if this horse does any kind of jumping or eventing, like somebody's going to wind up in a spot that they would rather not be. And I'd like the horse to be comfortable with handling things that maybe aren't perfect, right?
That's great. Thanks, Michael.
Awesome.
Let's turn back to Krista with Robin. She's been cantering this horse, figure eighting, going both directions at the walk, trot, canter, and he just kind of looks loose and happy. Ears forward, he keeps kind of cocking an ear back to listen to her. That's a pretty nice, even, calm trot for a horse coming in here, huh?
Am I on? Okay. Yeah, oh, yes. He's very laid back, like I said before. You know, he just needs to learn the transitions. He doesn't understand anything, but he's very light in the face, as you can see. He doesn't really pull on her. She's very light-handed anyways, but she stays light-handed. He just, you know, he doesn't understand his leads. There you go. There you go. He did a lead change for you.
Nice.
So pretty naturally lead change, right? So, but no, she just over and under gets that forward motion. Like I said before, he was so laid back. He's kind of like, he makes you work. How's that? He's a push horse. He's definitely a push horse. So you got to work to get him going. He's super good-minded. And I mean, he's really, for coming off the track, he's doing some pretty nice circles. I mean, he's not really wandering. He's staying between her legs, between her hands. He's actually very good. It has a really nice trot to him. Go ahead, just stop him once. See how your brakes are. There you go. That's okay. Bend him sideways a little bit, and then now back him up at the same time. There you go. There you go. Good. Do it again. So what I had her do right there was, he was stuck on that back up, right, to come off that bridle and back up. So I had her bend his head a little bit to help him, knock him a little more off balance, let him try to understand what you want. Instead of just sitting there pulling, I don't want to be pulling on that horse's face to make him back up. I should be able to take light contact, and he should understand what I mean. If you notice, what we'll do a lot of times, she's shaking her legs right there. She's shaking her legs. Instead of pulling harder, she's shaking her legs to make his legs move. So he needs to step. So now he's already catching on. He's backing up. He's figuring it out. The kicking with the contact meant back up, but the first couple of times she did it by flexing him, he kind of caught on really fast. He's actually a very smart horse.
Do you find, Robin, that obviously he's had some time off for his injury, he's lost some condition. Do you feel that he will maintain his quiet demeanor once he recovers his condition?
Oh, yeah, he's got a very quiet demeanor. I mean, I think he can go any way you wanted to go with him. If you want a ranch horse, a hunter, or whatever, right? I mean, he actually, that's what you want, is a very good-minded horse to do all these events, right? And I think he'll go anyway. I think he'll go a couple ways. I mean, just the way he is. He's just really nice. When he walked in, as soon as he walked in, I go, that's the quietest one. I could just tell, like instantly, you know. I could tell he was stage 2 and that was stage 3, right? I didn't even know how old she was, the chestnut mare. But being 3, that's understandable, you know. And then we know the history now, because I didn't at first when she came in. But this little guy, you can see how smart he is right there. She asked him back, and he just backed right up. I mean, he just, you know, we have split reins. So with our split reins, we can over and under them. You're cracking them. Half the time we're cracking the saddle and cracking ourselves. But it's the cracking of the noise that helps keep them going forward. You know, and at the same time, when we're doing things like that, we really get them more desensitized, so they don't react later on, things that happen.
The other interesting thing is that he's actually more engaged and more interested and has woken up when she started riding him, where before he was just really shut down a little bit, and now he's saying, oh, this is more interesting. And he also, that's part of the learning process, is that he was be the sort of horse that you could probably make a lot of progress with pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that she could go over those logs. Well, he just learns so fast. He's so quiet. You can just show you. I think things you can do with this horse, that he just is so willing to do whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, it's such a testament to how much of an individual these guys are. You know, some are the kinds of horses that respond more to just getting on and going, and then kind of going back to groundwork after. And then you have some who really absorb all the groundwork, and it puts you lengths and lengths
yeah.
forward and ahead once you're in the saddle. So when you guys, again, you start, a lot of horses kind of transitioning from the track or deal with young horses, what are some of the differences, or are there any differences between when you're starting horses that are coming off of the track versus when you get a young horse in of a different breed or hasn't had that racetrack experience? Do you take the same approach, or do you find things that are more or less challenging with one versus the other?
For me, the horses that are coming off the track are usually, they've had more exposure, more experience at a younger age. The warm bloods, or the horses that aren't coming off the track, are usually a little more naive. Maybe sometimes a little bit more of an open book. But then again, it is always an individualist thing. And yes, I do always start on the ground with my guys.
And now what we're seeing is the horse that Krista is on, he may have gone over poles. If he never has, then that's very impressive, but he looks as though he's gone over a couple of poles. So now a lot of people that are going to get their off-the-track thoroughbred or any young horse, they're going to want to jump it at some point. So what Krista's doing is exactly the approach that I take, and I'm not the only one. But you introduce it and you make it, to me, like I was talking about earlier, you want the horse to be curious, but you also find horses he was not concerned at all, but you will have some horses that just for some reason either won't go within 20 feet of it, or you get there and they will not step over it. And sometimes, to me, that's not a bad thing. Because when I jump a horse, and especially an event horse, I always want to know that the horse is going to finish the course, and especially the cross-country course, with me still on board and safe. And so what I do is I call a horse like that who's potentially careful. And I want a horse, when I go down to a jump, that is careful. And what I mean by that, that they are thinking about how to solve the problem, not how to avoid the problem. Also, earlier we were talking about giving your horse time and space to read the question, and that's why sometimes we tend, as humans, to get a little impatient or get too quick, and so we will put more pressure on, and the horse goes and solves the problem, which may be just walking over the pole, because we made them, not because we invited them and they came with us. And I find that you can set the whole tone for the relationship that you have with your horse right from the very beginning with those sorts of approaches. And you want the horse to work with you, it should not be adversarial, so it's always an argument.
So Robin, I see that she's starting to teach him to move away from her leg, and I am happy to see that she's doing what I teach all my students and do myself, which is she's moving her leg more than squeezing or kicking to encourage him to move away from it.
Right. Right. What she's doing, she's rubbing, yeah. Kicking, when people kick, you release, you kick, release. The horse says, move, oh no, move, oh no. It's a miscommunication, okay? And just squeezing, he goes, well, I can lean on you just as much as I can lean you in the wash rack when you try to move me over, and I won't move over. So it's a communication. When you just rubbing, you're irritating to the point where a horse moves away, then he says, oh, and then you quit and you reward, because everything's a reward, right? Everything we do is reward, is how I feel. It's all reward. And she just asks him to move her leg, and when we do that, we'll ask a little lateral, not just straight, head's totally straight. If you notice when she's doing it, she'll pick up the inside rein and get his face a little bit, because he doesn't understand. So we have to kind of put him in a position where he can kind of just fall into it, and then you reward him, and he goes, oh, okay, I can figure that out. Oh, that's pretty easy.
So you're opening the outside rein to give him space to move into.
Well, she's picking, when she was using her inside leg right there, she was grabbing that inside rein, getting him kind of bending him in the pole, basically, getting him a little lateral move, but also you're able to get that shoulder to kind of move away, to move to the outside. And of course, inside flex is always harder than outside, right? So if you flex one to the inside, it's easier for them to learn, to where eventually down the road, I would flex one lope into the outside circle.
And then you also started with that on the ground. So you're applying the same concept of moving the shoulders or placing the horse's head and neck on the ground, so that then there has to be a response to move the feet and the body follows instead.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm surprised he moved off, because on the ground he was so dull.
Yes.
It was like we're trying to get him to move. You weren't hard to get any reaction from him, right? And I was surprised that he just started catching on, because he's pretty smart. I mean, he is very smart. You can see whatever he just steps it up and tries to learn.
Yeah, he seems to want to learn when you're riding, certainly, when you're aboard.
Yeah, just like right there now, he just got stuck a little bit. Instead of pulling hard, you get that contact, move them legs. When he gets a nice smooth back up. And the reason, like, we back up, well, of course, in our events, we back up a lot. We're doing cow horse and cutting and so forth. But I like all horses to back up, because I feel that when a horse can back off that bridle and not lug into that bridle, right? I think that he learns to come off of pressure, and eventually you want vertical, right? You want flexion in a pole. So he's got to learn, instead of hanging against you in that bridle, he's trying to look for that reward, so he comes off you. Right. So it's a relationship that you're with your hands, that he starts understanding that pressure in the mouth. If I come off the pressure, she'll reward me, and pretty soon you'll have vertical. But the lateral. You got to have lateral before you have vertical, but you still, you're getting, and like when she was flexing, she picked him more lateral, get him a little off balance, so he couldn't grab her. When you're working off the bar of that mouth, a little off the side of that mouth, that horse can't grab you and lean against your bit as much as if you have a little bit lateral. You'll be able to he can't grab you, and then he starts understanding, because you put his shoulder and through his neck and his shoulder in a position that when he moves over, you release him. It just helps them start to relate.
Let's move over to Aubrey here. She's gotten in the saddle on her horse, and she's been doing a little bit of trotting, a little bit of walking, letting him explore the arena. A lot of what she did on the ground, we've already seen her doing a little bit under saddle. He's still kind of got a bit of an anxious trot. It's not quite loose yet, but it's definitely, he's got his ear cocked back here and there and trying to also take it all in as she's trying to kind of go back to the idea of forward is a good thing, and just keep him going forward and get him into a comfortable zone.
Good.
Aubrey, do you find, if you can hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you find with off-the-track thoroughbreds, when you start cantering, it often is a good idea to sort of do at least a light 3-point, if not a 2-point?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that they are, even though your weight is different and the saddle is different, at least that's something they're comfortable with.
Yeah, every time I start them, I'm actually much more comfortable in a light 3-point or 2-point when I'm going. I'll get in a deep seat if I need to, but largely I want these horses to know that moving forward, moving over their back, softening over their back and into the bit is the goal. And again, this comes back to sometimes it's too fast, and that's okay. Good boy. This horse has a really nice natural carriage. He's a little tight over his back just because he's still anxious, but he's starting to settle and really take this in nicely. But again, I'm on light contact. We're not holding it all, asking him to go forward. And when we do go canter, he actually, I'll be interested to see what lead he is more comfortable on, because that right shoulder moving over is a little stickier under saddle. And again, that's not a bad thing. That just, he wants to drop it to the right so that he can easily move left. Ooh. But he's got some very nice training on him. Easy. And walk. And if he wants to jig, generally I'll just go here, which is just wait until he gives me the walk. And then whatever direction he's heading, that's the direction we go. I'm not too picky. You're a good boy. And with the mounting block, we did a bunch of standing on the mounting block until he understood, because a lot of these horses don't know mounting blocks. Jockeys tend to get tossed up on their back from someone at their side. So having someone stand in that position, especially with a horse that is slightly dominant and thinks that he should be in control, when you get up on that mounting block, he's like, no. And they're not necessarily bad about it. So again, we'll just go real light, just back this way until he walks. Ooh, you're a good boy.
Especially with an 11-year-old who's $1 million, that means he's had jockeys tossed up on him for a long, long time. So he has a right to tell you you're doing something strange.
Absolutely. No, this is a very experienced, very nice horse, and you can feel it. I mean, he's all class under saddle. It's not going to take long for this horse to really figure out whatever his next discipline is. He's so nicely put together, and he's moving off my aids very nicely. So a little bit of what you might have seen me doing the other way is I will literally put the whip near the shoulder and ask them to move over, so inside leg is on, and the rein is there and the whip is there, and that's just translating some of what we did on the ground into the saddle, and that helps translate the, hey, move off my leg and move over. There, good boy. And you just wait for that tiny little give, and as soon as they give it, everything softens. Good boy. Over. There, very good. And this way is a little harder than going left. Good. Over. Over. And I'm not looking for the full cross step, I'm just looking for him to move his shoulder away from my leg. Good.
So he's not leaning on you.
Exactly, and so he's not just dropping it to the inside. And I just love how well he's taking in Jumbotron, the horse moving at the other end, the horse in the round pen. He's looking at everything, but he's being very, very sensible. What do you think, kiddo? Good shot? Yeah? Good boy.
And allowing him to look at everything is probably going to make him trust you more.
Yeah, that was actually exactly what I was thinking too. A lot of the time we get so focused on what we are asking of the horse and want their entire focus on us, but I think part of the reason all three of these guys are having so much seemingly easy success is because they are allowing their horses to take it all in, and they're being very aware and conscious of what their horses are trying to tell them. If their horse needs a minute to really look at something and understand it, or they need a mental break, or they need to just, focus on whatever they've just caught in their eye, they're 100% of the time, these three have been giving the horses that time and waiting for them to take that deep exhale and then progressing with what they were asking. At the end of the day, whether a horse is an 11-year-old coming off the track or a 3-year-old, in my opinion, sometimes these first rides are it's a young horse. They have that same mindset of they've only had one set of experiences at the track. It's a wide berth, an array of experiences, but they have that young horse mindset of just needing time to understand the questions.
Look at that, Aubrey. I saw that. That was almost a leg yield.
That was pretty nice. Good boy. He's really taking it all in. Good boy. And we will go canter, but I'm going to set him up so that he goes left first, because that's going to be the more comfortable direction, even if he is so-called right-handed. And the big thing is, no matter what lead he ends up getting, we're not going to pull him back. Let him go for a minute, even if we do get the right. And if he gets all amped and needs to move forward, then we just move forward.
That goes back to that point she made when she was working with on the ground. The answer is always forward. It gives you a lot less opportunities for failure, especially when you get into jumping or competitive trail or anything like that. They find their confidence in the forward.
There you go. When I get a horse off the track and they are immediately better to the right than the left, then I often think this might be why they came off the track. Maybe they needed to go to Europe to race.
And I love, we have Aubrey cantering around outside of this round pen, and then we have Michael on the inside of the round pen on his fill, and his filly is just kind of taking it all in and seeing what the senior horse is doing, but not necessarily reacting to it. How does she feel under you, Michael?
Good, actually. I did as much preparation as I think she could handle for today, and the goal for getting on her was to just make this as good of an experience as possible. So I started out with just some lateral flexion, make sure that she understood the bending and disengaging, and then here I'm actually taking the opportunity to just have her kind of follow this horse, to kind of watch. And horses, oftentimes, if they have a sense of purpose, it really helps them. So here, like the purpose of, following this horse around, and also, for her not to feel like she needs to get emotional just because the other horse is cantering or trotting or whatever. So here, I'm pretty much just letting her just find relaxation in this. And I'm asking little questions here and there, but not really in the sense of saying, hey, I'd like you to start doing, X, Y, and Z, but just more of, hey, are you with me? Just don't forget that I'm up here. I'm just still the pilot here, just kind of taking it nice and slow. So I'm super happy with this.
I did notice soon after you got on, she put her head down and gave a good old shake, hoping maybe all of it would come off.
Yeah, for sure. She
But
did
you
that once
handled
on
it.
the ground. I mean, there's definitely a lot of like emotion and stress that gets built up in here, and for her to be finding ways to let go of that, I think is really great.
Yes, I appreciated how you responded, which was once she was done shaking and you found the middle of the saddle again, you just gave her a pat and went on.
Yeah, good girl. Horses like to know that they're doing a good job. And this is, this is a big ask for any horse. I mean, I think anybody that has a horse at home that they've ridden 1,000 times or 10,000 times, like bring them into this environment, and this is challenging for, like, I don't care who you are. It's pretty special to have a horse that can handle this kind of an environment, for sure.
And that is an advantage to the off-the-track thoroughbred that I think is actually the opposite of their reputation. Often they will handle that environment better than your average warm blood or non-thoroughbred, because they have, compared to what some of these horses have been through with thousands and tens of thousands of people cheering and huge announcers and a herd of horses galloping as fast as they can go, this is actually really not that big a deal.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of what I've found with a lot of off-track thoroughbreds too. They acclimate to their surroundings surprisingly quickly, and we've seen that with all three of these horses. They came in here, a lot of stuff going on, lots to look at, and they were, rightfully so, they were pretty gassed up and looking at everything. And they've all just kind of taken a deep breath, acclimated to their surroundings, and are now, one's cantering around, and the other is just kind of watching and doing a nice little marching walk in the round pen.
Aubrey, you can definitely see that he is not as comfortable cantering with you to, or hand galloping with you to the right.
Good. So he's a little bit more off balance this way, and horses, as probably everybody knows, when they get off balance, they have to get faster to hold their balance. So one of the ways to slow him down is not to pull back, but actually to move him over into my left hand from the inside shoulder, inside leg, and then we can soften from there. And if it'll work, easy. And again, I'm just kind of keeping steady contact. We're not pulling, just using where my core is to try to rock him back, and then move him over. There.
Yeah, so
and as I move him over, he'll slow down. Very good.
Well, yes, it is definitely already working. He's looking much more comfortable.
Good. There you go. And as he pops the shoulder, he goes back to going faster. So you just kind of know, all right, so if we can work and get the focus back through the inside rein, inside leg, just coming up. That crop is at the shoulder there. So again, we're asking that right shoulder over, which is a lot harder than asking the left shoulder over. There, good boy. That's it.
It's
Super.
funny. I often notice with a lot of these off-track thoroughbreds
Good.
that prefer one lead over another. The one that is their weaker lead, you end up having to teach them a lot more, and you get a very quality gait quicker out of the one that started off as the weaker lead. And the one that is their favored lead, it takes a little bit more time to get the polish on that lead because they are so accustomed. It's kind of like us trying to write with our opposite hand, I would think. Do you guys notice that as well when you're riding these horses?
Absolutely. We all have our favorite way of doing things. Actually, if you've ever mucked out a stall or swept the barn aisle and you switch hands, you feel like you're a beginner again. And so we have to keep that in mind for what the horses have gone through, that we have to allow them the time and the space, but also help them to get to that point where they learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and so that they can handle new information, new situations. And that's what also is a point here that Michael made earlier, was that any horse coming in here could be quite concerned, and the fact that these horses have settled down is good. The other thing to keep in mind is that here, this is a little bit artificial, because you wouldn't necessarily at home or wherever you're working your horses put the same amount of pressure like we are today. This is a big ask for a lot of these horses. The way I always think about it is the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Otherwise, you're going to choke. So for some horses, like Michael already said, what he's doing now is just walking and letting her move around in the round pen. He's giving her time and space to figure things out. And he's asking her some small asks, so to speak. But that's the thing we also have to keep in mind, is sometimes we have to learn how to put pressure on and pressure off, and some days 20 minutes is all you're going to get, or all they need at that point.
Well, I think your point, Richard, is relevant to what Aubrey just went through in that right canter lead. He did learn to be okay with being uncomfortable, and then it opened the line of communication with her to be able to listen to a way to fix his discomfort. And he seemed to, Aubrey, really start to understand, wait, if I listen to her, it actually gets better.
And also all of the people working with the horses here are obviously very experienced, and not everyone that gets their new horse has that. But the main thing, one common denominator for all of these people, no matter the approach they take, is that they are asking, they are not demanding, they're not forcing, and they're waiting to see what the horse's response is. And sometimes we don't always pay attention ourselves, and we don't recognize that the horse has given us a good answer, and we either miss that or we don't give them time to give the answer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people that take these horses off the track don't understand what pressure is. They don't understand that what they're doing is pressure, and that is what starts the miscommunication and the distrust. So it's always a good idea to seek out someone like one of these three professionals to at least begin to open those lines of communication so that the horse is a little bit farther down the road.
Yeah, not to relate it to school days once again with people, but you think about, you try so hard on a class project or something when you're in 5th grade or 8th grade, and you wish you could just get credit for trying because you gave it your best. And it's up to us to see that in our horses too, that they are giving us the best answer that they can muster at that time. And so as long as it's not something they're doing with malicious intent, if they're giving you something to work with, it's your job not to put the pressure on them if they're trying. Robin, as we're kind of winding down, I wanted to ask you, I've seen her do some active work and then giving him a break and letting him think and letting him chill, and doing that over and over, just like you guys were doing on the ground as well. So can you talk us through just kind of what you guys have been working on, and then let's say this horse was in your training program for the next 3 months, 6 months, going off the track, transitioning to a new career, what would that look like for him?
Well, what we're working on, what she was working on right there, go ahead, go in the circle for me. Like what she was working on right here was actually his shoulder. She was walking him in the shoulder. She's waiting for that outside leg to cross over or come behind, hopefully cross over. Okay, so she's waiting for that left front leg to cross over, and as soon as she feels that nice fluid crossover, she released him. So eventually he's just going to start crossing over. I mean, it's like kind of like where you start a baby as a reiner. He's just got, but it's all shoulder motion. So she put him in a circle till he finally found himself. She didn't want his hind end really walking out. Okay, some people don't understand circle. They'll circle a horse and her hind end's whipping everywhere. She didn't want his hind. She wants his hind end going slower steps than the front legs. So when she's walking him around in this circle, as you watch her, okay, she's trying to get that front end to come around, and that hind end will actually stop almost. When she gets it really good, and she'll wait till he she'll tap with her outside leg until he, right there. See how his whole hind end just stopped and he crossed over. So we all have different methods to get the same thing. Maybe say, we just try to communication with the horse to understand it a little easier to get better, quicker results, right? So that's what she's doing. And if you notice, she just started that right before you started talking to me. And she'll just tap him lightly with that rein, get that shoulder, and as soon as he steps, she reward him. Well, she'll just keep doing it. He'll just get better and better and better at it. So it's more control of the shoulder down the road when you're picking the shoulder for lead changes, you're picking the shoulder going around the bend, approaching to the jump, or whatever you're doing. So that's what she's trying to do. So that's the type of stuff we would keep working on. Earlier, I had her doing a little bit like a side pass, and he really was coming off his leg. I mean, he stepped up. Dude, want to see if he'll move off your leg for me? And I said to her, is he dull? She says, no, he's not dull at all. He's just lazy. There you go. He's just lazy. He's not dull. He's just lazy.
Good boy.
She actually says, if I had a little set of, like nubby spurs, he'd be side passing across the arena because he's sensitive enough, but he's smart enough to understand that. You know, he understands that. And the thing I like about him is he's so laid back and needs more forward. With another 150 pounds, he'll be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Because the feed will give him just enough where he needs to be forward, well, not too much. You know what I mean? It's a fine line, right? So, like, the feed, the weight on him, I don't think he'll go over the board. I think he'll be perfect at neutral. How's that?
Yeah, and I think this is a really good point to make, too, because a lot of racehorses go through this evolution when they come off of the track. You know, their diet changes incredibly so. Their exercise level changes. He was rehabilitating from a minor injury, and their whole life changes. So mentally, emotionally, physically, nutritionally, everything is changing. And a lot of times they lose some amount of muscle that they had as an elite equestrian athlete before they gain the fat and substance and new muscle that we're going to give them in their off-track career. And so he's kind of halfway through that stage right now, but this is, you know, he doesn't look bad by any means. He's just going to bloom probably in the next 90 days because he's halfway through this evolution. He's kind of lost the muscle in the rehab from the racetrack and only right now today starting to redevelop it.
And I totally agree with that, but I will also tell you that, at least in my experience, I don't know about y'all, but the fact that he is allowing you to use your leg, and not only that he's responding to it, but that he's even allowing you to do that at this point puts him up in a top percentile of horses I've worked with. It usually takes a little while before they'll even let you put it on them, much less respond to it.
Right. Another thing he did, go ahead, canter one more time. I know he's tired, but canter one time. We were talking, okay, Mike and I were talking. He was cantering around here. Her reins were totally dangling. And at first, she got to get him on the correct lead. Of course, he's got to be strung out. But he came back himself and loped under himself, so balanced, and he picked his front end up, and she didn't have any contact on the rein. He just naturally did that. So that shows you how really talented and balanced he is.
Yes, it's natural balance and natural way of moving.
Yeah, right. So you got to get him going here.
Yes. His natural balance and natural way of moving is very good. He's not the horse that catches your eye.
Right there.
But the more you watch him go, you really see what a nice horse that he is.
That looks like an old lady canter to me. I'll take him.
I thought you meant he canters like an old lady.
He canters soft enough that it doesn't hurt an old lady, so I'm on it. He can come home with me.
All right, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and we've got a nice little crowd here. So if you guys in the crowd have questions for any of our trainers or for our commentators, if you wouldn't mind standing up or coming to the edge of the arena, and we'll come to you with the microphone, and you're welcome to ask any questions. You might have to wave your hands so we can see them, but definitely questions are welcome and encouraged, so please feel free to ask any questions of these guys. And Aubrey, can you, since you're kind of continuing to work with this guy, your program is totally different than Robin's. Can you talk us through a little bit about, you know, if he was in your program for the next 3 to 6 months, what would that look like for him?
So that's a great question. I mean, today we've done more than I would normally do on a first day. Normally I'll just do groundwork for a little while, especially if one's straight off the track and needs downtime. We'll establish the groundwork, see what we have. Sometimes it's groundwork for 1 or 2 months while they let down, basically just figuring out what their body and their brain needs. And then as soon as you're in the saddle, it's assessing what the horse has. This one actually, he's got the brain and the body. I don't want to say can move quickly because I don't want, you know, him to get overfaced and pushed, but at the same time, there's enough class here and enough talent that within, you know, 3 to 6 months, take it easy, but walk, trot, canter, get the balance, get your leads nice and comfortable, take him out on trails, go out, hack on the cross-country course, haul to different locations, and just take it easy. And what I've been working on is trying to get him on the loose rein walking and just not stressed out, and then a little bit of loose rein trotting, which he's been super good at. And so getting him to understand over that period of time both contact and long and low work so that they stretch over their back and continue to go forward. And then somewhere in there, depending on their development, I'd get them jumping and work through, you know, trot poles to a cross rail, some gymnastics, working slowly up to, very slowly towards more complex questions. But in the, there we go, you feel good? In the jumping process, get them out on cross country and see how they do with the more solid objects, because sometimes those are easier for them to conceptualize than poles, especially if you run into trouble where a horse just kind of doesn't quite get what it's supposed to do with its feet over time. I'll take them out cross country and just trot some tadpole fences. Sometimes they need to trot little bigger ones and figure out what to do, and then you take them back to stadium and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. I'd also get them out and just go places, go to little shows. We've got a great, you know, big plug to my friend Caroline and the Big Cheese eventing shows that we have, because they are so green horse friendly, and I would recommend everybody find, you know, green horse friendly shows in your area where you can go in the amoeba fences and just let them trot and figure it out. So that's about 3 to 6 months. Is I just kind of work them around until you have, they tell you what you've got, and somewhere near the end of that, you could probably put them in some schooling shows, depending if they're ready. And they'll, you know, it's not a terrible thing to say, they'll tell you when they're ready, because no horse is going to speak English. I'm going to be like, hey, I would like to go to a show now. But you'll know when you have enough. And I always tell people you're never going to feel ready, but if the horse is giving you all of the answers to the questions, or at least good ones, it's always good experience. So getting out to something that's not going to overface them and just letting them see and do it, you can then progress from there. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's always a good bit of fun.
Yeah, that's something we hear from our makeover competitors all the time, is how important it is for them to get their horses off-site and traveling somewhere repeatedly before they come to the makeover. And they have such a much better experience that way, because you think about it, especially these horses who are young, off-track thoroughbreds, every time they've traveled, it's been to go fast. It's been to go to a race or go to a different racetrack. And so getting them into that mindset of the different questions that will be asked once they get on and off of a trailer, whether you're hauling off-site for a trail ride or hauling off-site for a small show. We did another a masterclass discussion a few weeks ago at Equitana, and Ronnie Reimer was one of our clinicians, and he's a Grand Prix jumper rider, and he said the same thing you just said about whether it's an off-track thoroughbred, whether it's a young warm blood that is headed to the Grand Prix. He wants to find some of the smallest schooling shows he can in his area and just trot them through the cross poles or even the ground rails classes, and just that should be an excellent first outing for the horse that doesn't overface them but gives them all the tools they need. Do we have any questions in the audience? That I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Yes.
So Graham Motion, there was just a great article about him in the Chronicle and how he trains on the track for the future of the horse. You know what I mean. And I'm wondering, are there more? Do we have a list? Are there trainers out there that we know are thinking about the horse's next life?
Yeah, I mean, Graham Motion, he's such a great example of what you're talking about. He's such a good example for the racing industry. And he trains out of a facility in the Mid-Atlantic region called Fairhill. And a lot of the trainers there take advantage of all that facility has. You know, they can do the trail riding and hacks out, and they can use the synthetic track or the dirt track, or they can do gallops and bruises on the turf. And they can also travel to, 7 or 8 different tracks are within just an hour or two drive from there. So it gives them a lot of opportunities to train horses the European way, which is much less about the day-to-day go to the racetrack and gallop a mile and a half, and it's much more variety in their training careers. There's a lot of trainers at Fairhill who take that approach and utilize everything Fairhill has, and there's more and more training centers trying to develop aspects of the non-racetrack traditional training to incorporate into their training centers. So I think that is an idea that's catching on for sure.
I think it probably will become obvious to so many of the trainers how much better horse they'll have, a more sound horse, more well-rounded horse, more sane horse, if they take that approach.
Yeah, I mean, this was eons ago, 20 or more years ago when I was in college and I galloped. I rode for some trainers who at least one day a week at Keeneland, where they have the luxury of land, at least one day a week they did not want that horse going to the track. They just wanted you to hack and gallop in fields, trot around. If all you did was walk, they just wanted their mind to have a break as much as they wanted their body to have a break. And it's amazing how much more rideable those horses are on the track when they have that little time to just be a horse and enjoy the partnership with their rider.
There might be a reason the Europeans do it that way.
Yes.
And also a number of the trainers, successful racehorse trainers now, came from other backgrounds. Rodney Jenkins, Michael Matz, some of the top show jumpers in the world, and Michael Matz trains out of Fairhill. So there are a lot of people that bring a whole lot of their background with them, and there is a very strong recognition from a lot of the trainers now that if they think about the whole range of the possibilities for their horse instead of just when it's at the track, that the horses, I believe, they're going to find out that the horses are going to be better racehorses, but also they can have another job afterwards because they're started in a different way.
And I know this is a little bit off subject, but since we're talking about Fairhill, which means, of course, Maryland 5-star is happening today, and I just thought I'd brag for a moment. One of the off-the-track thoroughbreds that I sourced through Allison O'Dwyer, who is in first place right now in the dressage here at RRP, is Bogue Sound. And he is in, well, after dressage, he was in 6th place. Thoroughbred up there with all those fancy warm bloods in 6th place. So we're going to hope he jumps around and does his thoroughbred thing today and holds up the banner for all of us. So,
congratulations, Dorothy. Good job.
Not me, but I'm just excited for Jess. Jesse Phoenix is riding him. And so Bogue Sound was his racing name as well.
Fantastic. We'll have to watch out for him,
Colin
too.
Bogard.
If we don't have any questions, I wanted to ask Michael, I wanted to ask you the same question that I asked the other two. So if this filly came into your training program after kind of what you learned with her today and what your tactics are, what would the next 3 to 6 months look like for her?
I mean, something I was mentioning earlier to, I think it was John there. You know, for me, it's a lot of it is the strategy and the approach that I take will be, you know, what do I do today in my session to set this horse up so that she's better tomorrow, right? And somebody gave me some advice once because I was a little bit of an overachiever when I was getting started. And they said, just think about getting it 1% better, 1% improvement every day. And rather that's, you know, in a physical sense, like I need my horse to be 1% straighter, 1% more through, or rather that's in a mental place, get my horse to be 1% of a better puzzle solver, or rather that's in an emotional place, 1% braver, 1% whatever it is, right? So just looking at like this small incremental strategy, but with a big picture in mind. So like for me, for this horse, that would be like the progression approach that I would take, and I think that that's obviously in a perfect world, and sometimes you make more than 1%, sometimes you make less, but trying not to set it up to where you're going to risk losing that. So like for today, for example, I really think that if I would have trotted this horse and canted her under saddle, I had the potential to set up this whole experience to not be positive for her, right? Because if she would have gotten, if that had been overfaced, if I'd overfaced her that way, so I just took the approach of going, okay, where she was at, relaxed, on the buckle, walking around, connected with me was way more than 1% compared to how she came in. Her specifically, I think that this mare is going to be amazing. Like, I really think she's going to be awesome. I love her personality. I love her, like, her kind of feisty character. And my advice would be, whoever ends up being lucky enough to have this horse is come at it from a partnership perspective and really don't get into a fight with this horse. I think that for her, if she understands what we're going for and she's on my team as the trainer and rider, I think she's going to give me 110%. I think if you come in to try to put her in a box and like make her do it, I think she's going to, you know, struggle with that, because for her, she needs to see the point and be on the same page.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point that you made, and it's one that is made without fail at every masterclass we have, is that it's up to us as their trainers and their guides through this process to put our ego aside, and it's not about what we wanted to accomplish that day, it's about what that horse needed that day. And so, like for her, when you made the decision, oh, sorry about that, guys.
I don't know.
When you made the decision just to let her walk and have a positive experience on the loose rein, like sometimes you start the day thinking, okay, it's going to be jump school or it's going to be, you know, whatever, cross country, and they tell you, I had a bad night. I woke up on the wrong side of bed. Something has me frazzled. I need something different from you today. And it's our job to listen to it. I think that's a fantastic example of how we set them up for success.
Well, there's no doubt about halfway through, even before you got on her, it was really obvious that she had connected to you. And now she follows you around a little bit like a puppy dog.
Yeah.
You know, she's totally connected, so you made the right decision. Now she's had a great day.
Awesome.
Hey, if you ever wanted to compete in the RRP, she's eligible and for adoption.
I'm tempted. I'm really tempted.
All right. Well, I want to thank our clinicians. Thank you, Michael and Aubrey and Robin and Krista. And I want to thank Richard and Dorothy. Thank you so much to the Secretariat Center and Second Stride for bringing these incredible horses. They are for adoption. Which one is the one that's already been adopted? This guy over here that we love, the granny cantering. He's already been adopted and is going home to his new home from here, so congratulations, sir, on that. But these other two are up for adoption, so feel free to reach out to Second Stride for the bay that Aubrey was on, or to Secretariat Center for this lovely lady in front of me. And if there's any other questions or comments that you guys have for our clinicians, they'll still be here. And if you want to learn more about the Retired Racehorse Project, about tactics and tools and skills for retraining horses, or when we're going to be doing more master classes, you can go to retiredracehorseproject.org. And don't forget that we have got 2 full days of competition, Saturday and Sunday. We've got the Thoroughbred Makeover 2020 finale tomorrow. We've got all of the top 5 finishers from all 10 disciplines coming back into this arena to compete for top honors in each discipline, and then for the 2020 Thoroughbred Makeover champion. And then Sunday, we'll do it all again for the 2021 class. So please join us for that. That will be on our live stream as well. And we hope to see you there. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name's Elisa Wallace. I'm a 5-star event rider and I also train wild Mustangs.
We've all marveled at what retired racehorses can accomplish with less than a year of retraining.
I actually was able to win the RRP.
From Eventing Reloaded, Elisa Wallace!
Through the Makeover Master Class, we've also seen what the first steps on the road to the Thoroughbred makeover can be like.
Thoroughbreds are so smart and they want to be challenged a little bit, and so sometimes you have to up your game some.
2 2019 Makeover Master Class participants are entered in the 2021 Mega Makeover. Normandy Crossing, a winner of 11 of 42 races with $217,000 in earnings, who was entered in dressage and eventing with Team Normandy from New Jersey, showed immediate promise with Grand Prix dressage rider Emily Brawyer-Curtis at the 2019 Master Class.
It couldn't have gone better. He was awesome, super willing. He's going to make somebody an awesome horse in the future.
The Master Class was an entirely different experience, though, for the unraced Porta Ponte, who was paired with Elisa Wallace.
Mine was extravagant in certain areas, so we had some fun bareback playing time. So he did really great handling the atmosphere, and so it's going to be a great athletic, talented horse.
Over the next 2 years, Porta Ponte would go to school, quite literally, as part of the Equine Sciences program at Colorado State University.
Hi, my name is Malia Barlow. I'm a junior here at CSU, and this is Ponte. He's a 15 3-hand, 2015 gelding, and we're going to be competing in the dressage and the competitive trail when we go out there to Kentucky. And he loves peppermints.
My name is Tiari Santa-Steven. I'm an instructor in the Equine Sciences program at Colorado State University. I decided a couple years ago to, actually it was probably 3 years ago, to get a horse and get some students involved in making a team. And so we took Charming Kid back in 2019 and then got Porta Ponte for the 2020 year, but then COVID hit, and so here we are in 2021, headed to the makeover. I did see him in the master class, yes, in person, and we knew that he'd be a little bit of a challenge, but we were up for it and look forward to having the horse with us in our program.
And what has the 6-year-old bay gelding learned as he prepares to take on dressage and competitive trail with the CSU Rams team in 2021?
He's really shown some progress and kind of done almost a 180 flip with us working with him.
You're so good. You're so good. I've been working with him for a little bit over a year now. He's definitely improved a lot. He's been super good. His personality has gotten so much better. He approaches people very friendly in the pens and just is much more of a people horse now. But it was definitely with a lot of peppermints that came along.
Patience and just skills that they can use on horses out in the industry, whether it's teaching some of the lateral movements, teaching some of the relaxation pieces, and trying to get the horse to lengthen and stretch.
And he has a pretty natural headset. Sometimes I'll have to coax him a little bit into getting a little bit more soft, but for the most part, I can barely just touch him and he'll hold his head pretty good. And he is definitely a big one on being praised. So a lot of pats when he's doing good is a really positive reinforcement for him. There you go, good boy. I just want him to have a good experience and a lot of positive, just positive stuff that goes on so that he maybe in the future can go to more shows.
Porta Ponte has learned a lot in 2 years, and he's also teaching students at CSU. Horse and riders will now hope to ace their tests at the Thoroughbred Makeover.
Go Rams!
Yeah. He's like, do I get any more peppermints?
The journey of the 2017 Bay Gelding Underscore to the 2021 Thoroughbred Makeover goes back about a decade. It involves multiple generations and racing royalty. In 2012, Natalie Voss Nevels, fresh out of college, groomed an unnamed Bay yearling filly for sales at Keeneland and Fasig-Tipton. She says that's the only horse during her time grooming that she, quote, lost my heart to.
They're at the post. they're off in the Whimsical Stakes.
The filly didn't meet her reserve at both sales, so she ended up going back to her breeders, Christine and Jay Hayden, in Ontario, Canada, and became their first racehorse under the name Unspurned. Natalie Voss Nevels followed Unspurned's racing career, 16 starts from 2013 to 2015, all at Woodbine in Toronto.
Unspurned is trying to close at them on the far outside. Skylander Girl a narrow lead. Unspurned is surging. Skylander Girl, Unspurned, and Alan Garcia to win the Whimsical.
4 wins, the last of which came here in a graded stakes race, the Grade 3 Whimsical Stakes, over 6 furlongs on April 18, 2015.
At the end of the day, we'll just be happy to get her home.
Very exciting for you. Congratulations to the whole family. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you, Jay.
Home as a broodmare, so I was trying to say.
Okay, well, we'll add another good one to the broodmare colony, Unspurned.
Unspurned earned $492,000 on the racetrack, and her first foal, a bay son of sire Uncle Mo, sold for $400,000 at Fasig-Tipton at Saratoga in 2018. Natalie was similarly smitten by Underscore. Mother and son shared a similar personality. Underscore, a Bay Ontario bred like Unspurned, made his debut in a 6-furlong maiden special weight race at Oaklawn in Arkansas as a 3-year-old on March 7, 2020, with Joe Talamo riding the horse in the famous All Blue Silks of Godolphin racing royalty founded in the UAE.
Underscore split horses.
Natalie started referring to Underscore as Blueberry because that's what she said seeing Godolphin Blue on a racetrack's pan camera looked like. Of course, Blueberry also happened to be the barn name of the famous dressage horse Vallegro that won Charlotte Desjardins and Great Britain multiple Olympic gold medals. Minor injuries meant the end of Underscore's racing career after that one race. Then the Bay Gelding came to Voss Nevels through Godolphin's Lifetime Care program. Godolphin has been a longtime supporter of the Retired Racehorse Project. Voss Nevels' journey that started with Unspurned almost a decade ago will now take her and Unspurned's first foal to the Thoroughbred Makeover. As a tremendous advocate for OTTBs, Voss Nevels, the 3-time Eclipse Award-winning editor-in-chief for Pollock Report, has been chronicling the memories and lessons from first dressage tests.
We didn't start until late April, so with the time we had, that made the most sense to try. And then it turns out he's actually pretty good at this because he's built in such a way that the way I'm asking him to move at this point in his dressage training is very easy for him. So he doesn't mind doing it and he's happy doing it. And so he ends up making me look real smart because he's a good little mover and he tries pretty well for the level that he's at.
To rolls in the mud. She's shared her experiences and advice on the Friday show for Pollock Report.
I've been very lucky with Blueberry because he's always had a very positive impression of people, clearly. He expects every interaction he has with a person to be pleasant. If you can be aware that the people riding them and handling them on the ground are approaching it, with an experienced perspective, you're going to make the job easier for the next person on the racetrack and the next person off the racetrack too.
When you do what Natalie said, then when a horse retires from racing, they're already steps ahead of other breeds because they've traveled from track to track. They've loaded on trailers. They've been around big crowds and a lot of different people. So when it's done right, they actually have a bit of a head start. Underscore is a testament to how many people in the thoroughbred industry have come together to make a difference. It's worthy of a blue ribbon that goes quite nicely with Godolphin Blue and a bay gelding named Blueberry. It was the 2018 Maryland Million Day at Laurel Park.
And now for the Maryland Million turf.
Maryland Million's, it's a huge deal at Laurel. Ton of people, lots of stuff, lots of fun things going on that day.
Talk Show Man, away in good order, will be taken back, and Flash Phelps is up close.
Talk Show Man and Flash Phelps came into the Maryland Million turf as 2 of the best turf racehorses in the state. Talk Show Man had won the Maryland Million turf in 2014, and Flash Phelps was victorious in 2015 and 2016. The 2 favorites in the field of 9 for the 1-mile race turned in a thrilling stretch drive.
Flash Phelps set down on the outside center of the course. Willie D. Rocket is right there in fourth and a little bit tight. Flash Phelps trying to strike the lead with a furlong left to go. Talk Show Man on the outside showing late interest, and Grandiflora is digging down to the inside. Flash Phelps, Grandiflora, Talk Show Man, Flash Phelps, and Talk Show Man. Talk Show Man, Flash Phelps. Talk Show Man's got Flash Phelps to win it by a head.
Both horses would retire the following year. Now, 3 years after their Maryland Million memory, they're both part of the Mega Makeover in the class of 2020. Talk Show Man entered in Show Hunter and Field Hunter, and Flash Phelps entered in Dressage and Show Jumper. Sports fans love a good rivalry.
We talk a lot of smack. It's fun though, you know? Especially some of these, you know, turf horses that are able to have long careers where they can come back year after year and gain a following not only within the racing community, but, you know, friends and family.
So, in the spirit of promoting retired racehorses, let's meet the two Maryland racing stars and renew this rivalry off the track. Introducing first, Flash Phelps and Sabrina Morris.
I started galloping him as a 3-year-old at Laurel Park. I was hired to work for Rodney Jenkins, who was his trainer, and he and I just kind of clicked. This is a big, strong, self-defiant, self-righteous horse that needed, he had a ton of talent, but it wasn't coming out in the afternoons, and he was kind of a jerk to deal with in the mornings. So that's my type. That's my type. If it's a jerk and has some emotional needs, apparently that's what I'm attracted to. This horse is really cool. He's a local celebrity in Maryland. He actually ended up being the Maryland-bred turf horse of 2016. There's a lot of people back home that know him and that are so excited to see him doing something that is different than what they know him for.
Ladies and gentlemen, Talk Show Man and Lindy Gutman.
So I knew a lot about his racing career because his owner is our veterinarian, and we have been following him on the track. We're pretty avid racing fans. He's sort of a local racing celebrity. We did Real Ryder Cup, and so I've just tried to promote the fact that people know who he is. He knows he's important. He's sort of used to being the big man on campus, and he has that expectation from us as well. But he's really interested and he's really smart, so he loves doing and trying different things. And I think that's been a lot of fun for me. He's worked some cows. He does a little bit of fox hunting. I wanted to bring awareness that you don't have to really be a professional to retrain a racehorse. He's such a cool dude. He's a trier no matter what he does. He's a good boy. I love him. I love him. I love you.
Here with Imperative, who had a remarkable racing resume. 50 starts, 7 wins, 19 top 3 finishes, earnings of more than $3.3 million. Wins in the $1.5 million Charlestown Classic.
They're off in the Charlestown Classic.
The richest race in West Virginia in 2014.
Kent DeSormo and Imperative have taken the lead on the outside. Game on Dude is all out. He is back running in second. Moreno is third. In an absolute shocker, Imperative and Kent DeSormo have won the Charlestown Classic.
That earned him a berth to the Breeders' Cup Classic that year, and then went over to Japan and ran in the Champions Cup at Chukyo.
Group 1 racing in Japan, and they're off. Then followed by Imperative, the visiting horse along the fence.
He won the Charlestown Classic again in 2017.
Imperative on the outside. Matt King Cole, Imperative, they throw it down in the Classic. Imperative, Matt King Cole, Imperative rides the country roads to victory again.
Retired in 2019, and here with Louise Atkins at the Kentucky Horse Park. He likes his peppermints. Louise, how did you end up getting such a classy horse?
So I was approached by NTWO, where he was retired. They asked me if I would take him to the 2019 makeover. I agreed to take him, and then he was always going to go back to them. That was the plan.
NTWO is?
National Thoroughbred Welfare Organization. It's here in Kentucky. And they were going to use him as a promotion for the breed. Oh,
Maybe we should just let him speak for himself.
And then with the makeover not happening, we decided that they were going to transfer ownership to me. So now I own him, and we're going to compete here, and then hopefully we're going to end up going up through the levels in dressage. That is our plan.
Wonderful. Well, for a horse that had raced 50 times over a span of 7 years, what was his transition like to dressage?
It was tough. In the beginning, he didn't really understand what I was asking. He didn't know how to go on the bit. But he is one of the hardest working horses I have ever met. He tries so hard, and once you've taught him something, he's got it.
I truly think a horse that has raced at that high level has that inherent try in them. So looking at him, he seems to be taking it all in. What's his temperament like?
He's cheeky. He's very cheeky. He is very much in charge of the barn. We call him the mayor. He is the mayor of our barn. Nothing gets by him. He's alert. He's aware all the time. He's wonderful. He's a wonderful horse.
What do you enjoy most about working with him?
His try. It is unbelievable. I've never met a horse that comes out to work every single day, every day. Like he's amazing.
How is he taking to dressage in terms of the movement, the carriage, much different than what he would have been expected to on the track?
Yeah, he doesn't have the biggest movement, so he's going to struggle to compete against the warm bloods, but what he does have is consistency. Like he is super consistent when he goes, his rhythm, the way he carries himself, he has so much presence that people stop and look because they're like, wow, right? But you know, he can do most of the movements. His lateral work is very good. We'll see how far he goes, whether he ever gets to Grand Prix or not. But as far as now, he's very sound, he's very strong, and we're excited.
Well, when he came off the trailer, he immediately caught the eye of a lot of people. Introduce yourself a little bit. What has your background been with working with off-the-track thoroughbreds?
I run Cobalt Stables in Pennsylvania, and we have a small resales business. We restart thoroughbreds and resell them. We've probably done about 50 so far. We're about 5 years now. This is our second makeover. We have 5 horses competing this year, so we're going to be very busy. And then his first ride, he went around with his head stuck in the air. And I thought, how am I going to make this a dressage horse? And then all of a sudden he was like, I got it. And now he's lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Oh, this is wonderful.
I know, that's why I was like, I'm starting now, at least so I can get that footage.
Joan Reynolds not only has trained 2020 Thoroughbred Makeover graduate Town of Towns to compete in show hunters, but also trained this good-looking gelding on the racetrack as well. This is Joan, this is Town of Towns. What is your background with this lovely boy?
2014, I claimed him for 12.5 out of allowance optional claiming. Just fell in love with the horse from day one. Won back-to-back allowance 25,000 with him. Since then, I trained him for almost 6 years, won 10 races. He's made total of $326,000. Just a super cool horse. It's been relatively easy to train as a show hunter. I think he loves his new career. He is super special. He'll be in my barn forever. He's very, very cool horse.
His racing background, 10 years from 2010 to 2019, 89 starts, 19 wins, 42 top 3 finishes, $326,000 in earnings.
And retired at the age of 11.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And they're up. Coming to the top of the stretch now, and it's Bill's production with a 3-length lead on Town of Towns in second. Near the inside, Zen Papa straight back again. Here's Zen Papa into third, but time is ticking away. Zen Papa third and even clippers. Town of Towns. Town of Towns, a 10-year-old Town of Towns in the photo with Bill's production. Bred in Kentucky by Stonecliff Farm. 10-year-old Doc Bear Brown gelding by Spicetown, and a Keep On Dealing by Friendly Lover.
How has his transition been then to the show world?
It was good. Originally I gave him about 6 months off. He needed just time to chill. Starting him, he had a lot of trouble going to the right, obviously, for all those years going to the left. But came around nicely. I had shoulder surgery, so I gave him a lot of time. I didn't even start him back until May of this year. So we've had this summer to show. He's been pretty much showing every weekend. He's come a long way. He's not perfect, but he's getting there. Super cool horse.
We really love having the Racing Connections stay involved with the horses after they retire. What's your background then? Because you can train a thoroughbred for anything, it seems like.
Well, I try to actually, when I'm done with most of the horses that I train, I try to replace, for second careers. I'm very involved with that, and if I can't find homes for them, I keep them myself until I do. So I think this is the start of something for me. I'd like to take a horse each year and try to come here. It's been great fun, and it's just been really rewarding.
What are some of the stories you'll take back to the racetrack about the Thoroughbred Makeover experience?
That they need second careers, and even after years of racing, they're capable of doing it. Very capable. It's tough in the beginning, but they come around. They really do. It's awesome, and when I mean rewarding, it's incredible. It's been a lot of fun. Just the transition from racing to show.
For him, what's so special that you said you like to rehome some of the horses that you train, but you're not rehoming this guy?
He and I have just bonded from day one. And he was quirky. When I claimed him, they said he was crazy. And he was a little weird, I'm not going to lie, but he's come around. He really trusts me. And I can do anything with him. I trail ride him. I'm thinking about fox hunting him. He'll kind of go wherever I want him to go. So it's pretty cool.
Just standing here with him, I like how he's checking out the camera and the surroundings.
He loves it, absolutely loves it.
Thank you for being such a wonderful advocate and ambassador for the horses on the track and to transition them to compete at the Thoroughbred Makeover and beyond.
Well, thank you very much for having us here, and it's huge. Hopefully this is the beginning of something, and we can try to get more of these horses off the track and into the show rings, and by doing some other type of discipline. So
there are no sure things on the racetrack, but I'd bet on that one.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With Bailey Poorman from Pennsylvania, and with the Pennsylvania bred Nice Surprise, the war horse, the 2010 Dark Bay Gelding, who made 95 starts on the track, 15 wins, 44 top 3 finishes, $398,000 in earnings. But Bailey, you knew this horse long before all of his great career and great success on the racetrack.
I did. So I started working for Jonathan Shepard the summer that I turned 14 when he was a yearling at the time. So I wasn't taking part in actually breaking them at the time, but once he was going well enough, I started galloping a little bit. Just on the weekends after school and things, I would go over. And then all through his 2-year-old year, the same thing. On the weekends from school, I'd go over, and he was always one of my favorites. I'd always show up and beg to ride him every time I was over there. And then same thing as a 3-year-old. And then he got claimed from us the winter of his 3-year-old year. So he was one of my favorites as a baby, and I figured I would just follow him through his career, and now here he is as an 11-year-old.
So he got claimed away, but you still were following him, and then how does he end up back with you?
So my mom works for the Pennsylvania Thoroughbred breeders, and so I just kept an eye on him, saw that he was running and things.
Here comes Nice Surprise, and he is motoring down the center of the track. They're coming to the 16th pole. The leader is still King Slayer. Nice Surprise, eating up the ground. It's going to be very close. Here's the line. Photo finish. It's too close to call.
And then winter of 2019, I had her reach out to one of her connections at Parks and just have them reach out to his current connections and say, hey, if this horse has ever done running, I'd love to have him, or I'd love to help you find him a home. He was one of my favorite babies and stuff, and the trainer was nice enough right then and there to say, yeah, I don't think there's much more we can do with him, so you're welcome to have him if you want. So I took him home a few days before Christmas in 2019.
What was his temperament like as a yearling, and what is he like now to be around?
He's exactly the same. He was the easiest, nicest, kindest baby, and he's still the same way now. He's a little bit older, a little bit stronger, but definitely still the same sweet, quiet horse that he always was.
You're the class of 2020 with eventing, and you took him beginner novice at Olney Farm in Maryland for the horse trials. How has he taken to his new sport?
He loves it. His flat work is a little bit hard sometimes, but I mean, after you run 95 times and that's all you know for the first 10 years of your life, it's definitely a hard transition on the flat. But as soon as you get him jumping, it's like he was doing it his whole life as a baby and stuff. At Jonathan's, we start schooling them as 2-year-olds, so he learned it from a very young age, and you could see he just took right back to it. Coming off the track as an 11-year-old. He gets so excited when we go out to jump, especially the cross country. He gets out there and he loves every second of it.
Well, thank you, Bailey, for being such a great part of this horse's entire life.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's so fun to have him back. I never thought I would be here with any horse, but let alone one that I have such a good connection with. So it's awesome to be here with him.
And he very much wants, I don't know where to hold the microphone, he very much wants to be a part of it all. All right, good luck to you. Nice surprise.
Thank you.